transformasi ekonomi Indonesia.
Akuntan memiliki peran penting dalam pembangunan nasional yang berkesinambungan.
Profesi akuntan mendukung upaya peningkatan profesionalisme SDM Indonesia agar bisa optimal berkarya, mendukung pembangunan ekonomi yang efisien dan transparan. Melalui Prakarsa 6.1 yang telah ditetapkan sebagai program umum Dewan Pengurus Nasional IAI periode 2018-2022, IAI siap berkarya mengawal perekonomian bangsa ini menuju Indonesia Emas 2045.
Saya sangat mendukung rencana IAI untuk mempercepat program sertifikasi agar para akuntan di negara kita memiliki kreativitas, inovasi, keterampilan, dan memiliki daya saing, dan sekali lagi dalam rangka mendukung pengembangan ekosistem kita yang lebih akuntabel, lebih efisien, goal-oriented, dan inovatif.
Tanggung jawab itu terwujud melalui Chartered Accountant Indonesia sebagai identitas akuntan profesional Indonesia dan telah mendapat pengakuan kualitas secara global. Prakarsa 6.1 berisi 6 langkah aksi dengan satu tujuan strategis untuk memperkuat peran IAI dalam meningkatkan kepercayaan masyarakat terhadap entitas bisnis dan publik dengan menyiapkan akuntan profesional berintegritas siap menghadapi masa depan. IAI melaksanakan tugas dan tanggung jawabnya menyusun standar akuntansi keuangan dan standar profesi, melaksanakan ujian sertifikasi, serta aktivitas keprofesian lain mengacu kepada International Federation of Accountants dan Chartered Accountant Worldwide. IAI for Society dijalankan untuk memberikan manfaat yang semakin besar bagi masyarakat, serta untuk mendekatkan profesi kepada publik. Founding Fathers IAI telah menetapkan 2 tujuan pendirian IAI. IAI dibangun untuk mempertinggi mutu pendidikan akuntan dan meningkatkan kualitas pekerjaan akuntan Indonesia. IAI menguasai perubahan, menyiapkan masa depan.
Gabung Brevet Pajak IAI, pilihan tepat untuk Anda. Pelatihan Brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi. Kenapa memilih IAI? Modul yang selalu update dan materi yang dilengkapi dengan pembahasan studi kasus komprehensif. Instruktur yang terjaga kompetensinya, berpengalaman, dan tentu saja profesional. Apa aja yang didapat kalau belajar pajak? Sudah pasti, kita jadi tahu seluk-beluk perhitungan pajak. Menjadi kuasa hukum perpajakan mewakili perusahaan, meningkatkan karir dan menunjang profesi. Kalau ingin menjadi konsultan pajak, belajar privat pajak juga bisa sebagai langkah persiapan USKP. So, banyak kan manfaat belajar privat pajak? Sebagai benefit tambahan, IAI melaksanakan program kuliah umum perpajakan dengan menghadirkan narasumber dari praktisi dan profesional di bidang perpajakan. IAI juga melaksanakan gathering alumni brevet untuk senantiasa mengupdate informasi perpajakan. Kalian juga tidak perlu bingung, karena IAI menyiapkan berbagai pilihan waktu belajar, jadi dapat disesuaikan dengan kebutuhan. Bagi teman-teman mahasiswa, IAI juga memberikan harga khusus mahasiswa aktif. Selama pandemi, IAI juga tetap hadir dalam pelatihan brevet pajak secara virtual dengan menggunakan platform Microsoft Teams. Hal ini juga memungkinkan untuk dapat diikuti oleh peserta dari seluruh Indonesia. Dan, untuk diketahui, pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI juga diperkuat dengan MOU antara IAI dan Direktorat Jenderal Pajak. IAI juga memiliki kompartemen akuntan perpajakan. Yang salah satu kegiatan rutinnya adalah menyelenggarakan regular tax discussion yang mengupas isu perpajakan terkini. Pelatihan brevet IAI hadir di 6 knowledge center di Jabodetabek, IAI Knowledge Center Menteng, Moy, Serpong, Kedoya, Fatmawati, dan Sumarekon Bekasi. Selain itu, dengan standarisasi nasional, pelatihan brevet IAI juga hadir di beberapa IAI wilayah di Indonesia. Nah, jadi tunggu apa lagi? Ayo segera daftar pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI. Pelatihan brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi.
Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, akuntan profesional unggul, Indonesia maju. Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, IAI, telah berkiprah mendukung pembangunan SDM dan transformasi ekonomi Indonesia.
Akuntan memiliki peran penting dalam pembangunan nasional yang berkesinambungan.
Profesi akuntan mendukung upaya peningkatan profesionalisme SDM Indonesia agar bisa optimal berkarya mendukung pembangunan ekonomi yang efisien dan transparan. Melalui Prakarsa 6.1 yang telah ditetapkan sebagai program umum Dewan Pengurus Nasional IAI periode 2018-2022, IAI siap berkarya mengawal perekonomian bangsa ini menuju Indonesia Emas 2045.
Saya sangat mendukung rencana IAI untuk mempercepat program sertifikasi agar para akuntan di negara kita memiliki kreativitas, inovasi, keterampilan, dan memiliki daya saing, dan sekali lagi dalam rangka mendukung pengembangan ekosistem kita yang lebih akuntabel, lebih efisien, goal-oriented, dan inovatif.
Tanggung jawab itu terwujud melalui Chartered Accountant Indonesia sebagai identitas akuntan profesional Indonesia dan telah mendapat pengakuan kualitas secara global. Prakarsa 6.1 berisi 6 langkah aksi dengan satu tujuan strategis untuk memperkuat peran IAI dalam meningkatkan kepercayaan masyarakat terhadap entitas bisnis dan publik dengan menyiapkan akuntan profesional berintegritas siap menghadapi masa depan. IAI melaksanakan tugas dan tanggung jawabnya menyusun standar akuntansi keuangan dan standar profesi, melaksanakan ujian sertifikasi, serta aktivitas keprofesian lain mengacu kepada International Federation of Accountants dan Chartered Accountant Worldwide. IAI for Society dijalankan untuk memberikan manfaat yang semakin besar bagi masyarakat serta untuk mendekatkan profesi kepada publik. Founding Fathers IAI telah menetapkan 2 tujuan pendirian IAI. IAI dibangun untuk mempertinggi mutu pendidikan akuntan dan meningkatkan kualitas pekerjaan akuntan Indonesia. IAI menguasai perubahan, menyiapkan masa depan.
Gabung Brevet Pajak IAI, pilihan tepat untuk Anda. Pelatihan Brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi. Kenapa memilih IAI? Modul yang selalu update dan materi yang dilengkapi dengan pembahasan studi kasus komprehensif. Instruktur yang terjaga kompetensinya, berpengalaman, dan tentu saja profesional. Apa aja yang didapat kalau belajar pajak? Sudah pasti, kita jadi tahu seluk-beluk perhitungan pajak. Menjadi kuasa hukum perpajakan mewakili perusahaan, meningkatkan karir dan menunjang profesi. Kalau ingin menjadi konsultan pajak, belajar privat pajak juga bisa sebagai langkah persiapan USKP. So, banyak kan manfaat belajar privat pajak? Sebagai benefit tambahan, IAI melaksanakan program kuliah umum perpajakan dengan menghadirkan narasumber dari praktisi dan profesional di bidang perpajakan. IAI juga melaksanakan gathering alumni brevet untuk senantiasa mengupdate informasi perpajakan. Kalian juga tidak perlu bingung, karena IAI menyiapkan berbagai pilihan waktu belajar, jadi dapat disesuaikan dengan kebutuhan. Bagi teman-teman mahasiswa, IAI juga memberikan harga khusus mahasiswa aktif. Selama pandemi, IAI juga tetap hadir dalam pelatihan brevet pajak secara virtual dengan menggunakan platform Microsoft Teams. Hal ini juga memungkinkan untuk dapat diikuti oleh peserta dari seluruh Indonesia. Dan, untuk diketahui, pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI juga diperkuat dengan MOU antara IAI dan Direktorat Jenderal Pajak. IAI juga memiliki kompartemen akuntan perpajakan. Yang salah satu kegiatan rutinnya adalah menyelenggarakan regular tax discussion yang mengupas isu perpajakan terkini. Pelatihan brevet IAI hadir di 6 knowledge center di Jabodetabek. IAI Knowledge Center Menteng, Moy, Serpong, Kedoya, Fatmawati, dan Sumarekon Bekasi. Selain itu, dengan standarisasi nasional, pelatihan brevet IAI juga hadir di beberapa IAI wilayah di Indonesia. Nah, jadi tunggu apa lagi? Ayo segera daftar pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI. Pelatihan brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, selamat siang and a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to our joint webinar on key audit matters. So today's webinar is brought to you by the ASEAN Federation of Accountants or AFA and the Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountants or Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia IAI, the Indonesian Institute of Certified Public Accountants or Institut Akuntan Publik Indonesia or IAPI, and the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants or ACCA. My name is Oki Pratama, Executive Director of AFA, and I will be your host today. Now, before we start, I would like to invite you to observe the following conditions for participants joining this webinar. You are, of course, encouraged to submit your questions throughout the webinar, and please kindly refer to the Slido link provided on your screen right now to submit the questions. Our speakers will address selected questions during the Q&A session later. Now, throughout the webinar, I will also be sharing 3 important keywords that you need to take note of and string together for the purpose of securing your e-certificate from this webinar. We have with us today participants who have registered either through a link provided by IAPI or a joint link by IAI, ACCA, and AFA. Do refer to the information provided on your screen to complete the evaluation form in order for you to be eligible for the e-certificate. And for our first keyword for the day is enhance. I repeat, our first keyword for the day is enhance. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak dan Ibu, we are pleased to present you today with an excellent lineup of regional speakers to talk about the very important topic of key audit matters. As public confidence in the disclosure and transparency of corporates' financial reporting has taken a hit with the spate of financial scandals in Indonesia and several other jurisdictions in the region, questions have been asked about the work undertaken by independent auditors, how they assess and respond to risks of material misstatement in the audit. The public has nothing much to support their evaluation of the audit performance and to understand significant risks in the auditor's judgment. The disclosure of key audit matters by auditors holds the potential to bridge that gap. In many cases, key audit matters relate to complex and significant matters in corporate financial reporting, such as valuation of goodwill and other long-term assets, valuation of financial instruments, or acquisition accounting. It provides insights to aspects of an audit that are keeping the auditors awake at night. Thus, users of financial reporting, including the public, can more easily understand the biggest risks in the auditor's consideration, allowing them to focus first on those areas in the management's own reporting, and where appropriate, engage the board and management to further understand how these matters are dealt with in the business and for the purpose of financial reporting. Now, AFA and the organizers of our webinar today understand the importance for our members accountants with an opportunity to hear and learn from the best about key audit matters. Following a successful previous webinar by IAPI and ACCA, today we will share about the topic from the perspective of and for the non-auditors, especially the preparers. What does key audit matters mean to non-auditors? What are some of the highlights from other jurisdictions' experience in implementing key audit matters? And what are the audit committee and investor have to say about this? I am sure you will be hearing more on this from our speakers today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin our session today with a brief remarks from leaders of the 4 co-organizers, ACCA, AFA, IAPI, and IAI. First, I would like to invite my good friend, Mr. Pulkit Abrol, ACCA Regional Director for ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand, to deliver his remarks. Pulkit.
Thank you, Oki, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. It is such a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to welcome you all today for such an important event. It is important because the future of audit, how the public perceives the work of auditors, how auditors view their own place in the world, and the value businesses place on a robust, independent, and effective audit process is a key question for our times. The skills of auditors have never been more crucial because the world has changed. Even in just a single generation, it has changed. It is more complex. It is more volatile. It is more chaotic. The threat of climate change to the future of the world has accelerated. A pandemic has brought the global economy to its knees and transformed the way people work and live their lives, probably forever. Economic stresses everywhere have led to a rise of economic nationalism and threats to free trade. The explosion in digital technology and new developments in the field of AI, artificial intelligence, data analytics, robotics, is ushering a new industrial revolution at breathtaking but a quiet speed. There is much distrust amongst consumers who believe that businesses are interested only and exclusively in profit and are prepared to bend the rules and despoil the planet to make money. As a result of all of this, people everywhere are craving and demanding more honesty, transparency, openness, not only from public bodies and politicians, but from businesses as well. Increasingly, they would not trade or support organizations they do not trust. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where we begin our discussion today. Because the audit function plays a central role in restoring trust and faith in the businesses and the bodies we work with, it gives investors confidence in the information they need in order to allocate capital to ventures that are worthy of support. I'd go a bit further. An effective audit profession, ladies and gentlemen, can only play a vital role in sustaining the kind of strong, safe, stable societies we want our children to grow up in. A strong audit function can blow away the fog of mistrust and shine a light on the work businesses do in a way to build a better world by providing opportunities, extending prosperity, and supporting sustainable economic growth. Today's theme, ladies and gentlemen, key audit matters, is so important in building a robust, reliable, and relevant audit function in Indonesia. It brings real potential to promote the good health of Indonesian businesses, the public sector, and the nation's economy. Very important messages in the world we live in today. I'm so pleased that ACCA can play our part working with all our partners, especially those who are taking part in this event today, to talk through our common goals. ACCA is delighted to support the adoption of the new auditor's report in Indonesia and to champion the concept of key audit matters along with our partners. This is such a vital development in our profession, and it is critical to get it right. This is why it's so valuable that we can come together and continue to come together in the future in events like this as professionals across multiple sectors, disciplines, to advance the cause of a better audit and key audit matters. I am just going to call it in the short form of key KAMs, CAMs from now onwards, just for ease. ACCA comes to this work with a long and proud record of promoting public accounting in Indonesia. As far as 2016, ACCA was supporting the government of Indonesia to improve transparency and good governance by building the International Public Sector Accounting Standards for government auditors and finance officers. This strengthens Indonesia's ability to implement a accrual-based accounting policy and deliver public value. I know that the next chapter in the story of finance profession in general and audit in particular is vital. The growing acceptance of key audit matters is central to that story. Many of you in the audience who will know about this subject a lot more than I do, for sure. But just a few of those who've joined us today might find the concept new. So I'll just spend a few more minutes on this. I'm sure you will learn a lot on this subject today, but for now, I will outline a few important points. ACCA investigated the impact of key audit matters and published a report called Key Audit Matters, Unlocking the Secrets of the Audit a couple of years ago. The research aimed at understanding how well key audit matters meet the IASB's aim of providing more useful information for investors. It found evidence of high quality reporting in audit reports, which suggests that many auditors have successfully risen to the challenge. The research revealed 3 extra benefits of implementing or adopting key audit matters. Improved governance, number 1, higher quality audit, number 2, better financial reporting, number 3. When we're looking at the first one, improved governance, key audit matters encourage better conversations between auditors and those in charge with governance. Higher quality audit, the second one, key audit matters help auditors to focus on areas of the audits requiring the most careful judgment. Better financial reporting. Key audit matters give preparers of financial statements incentives for revisiting financial reporting and disclosures in areas related to those key audit matters. One of the clearest benefits of key audit matters, it brings a response to calls from stakeholders globally for more detail about the audit process, the greater openness and clarity in audit reports. In this way, it tackles 2 of the most important issues of our age that we mentioned earlier, transparency and risk. But if we are to make most of these gains, we need everyone in the financial reporting ecosystem to play their part. This is why having so many people from different businesses, sectors, areas of professional interest at today's discussion is very, very heartening. Let us enjoy a robust, creative, and a stimulating conversation and emerge stronger with a lot more knowledge as well as a common dedication to building the secure, successful, and sound audit and finance profession that will continue to serve Indonesia well into the future. Thank you all very much for listening to me. All the very best.
Thank you, Pak Pulkit, for that inspiring remarks. Next, I would like to invite AFA President, Mr. Wantin, to deliver his remarks. Wantin? Or maybe I could invite perhaps Bapak Tarko Sunario first, President of IAPI, to deliver his brief remarks whilst we're waiting for Mr. Wantin.
Makasih Pak Oki. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Greetings to all of us. Welcome to the joint webinar from the all participants. First of all, IAPI would like to thank you for the support and cooperating given so that this event can take place today. And namely, first to the Mr. Pulkit Abrol, Regional Director of ACCA, ASEAN and ANZ. The second is for Mr. Wantin, President AFA. And the third is for Mr. President IAI, Professor Mardiasmo. We are also grateful and give high appreciation to all of our speakers today and panelists who have taken the time to enlighten and share knowledge and experience. The first is to Mrs. Kusumaningsih Angka Wijaya, member of the Auditing and Assurance Standard Board of IAPI. The second is to Mr. Budi Susanto, Chairman Financial Accounting Standard Implementation Team of IAI. The third is to Mr. Chiu Chunwin, Regional Head of Policy, ACCA, ASEAN, ANZ, Board Member of IASB. And the fourth is for Mrs. Zaitun Muhammad Hassan, Chairman, Board Governance and Audit Committee, Lembaga Tabung Haji Malaysia, and Sam Darby Plantation Berhad. The fifth is for Mr. David Smith, Head of Corporate Governance, Asia Pacific Aberdeen Standard Investment. And to our moderator today, Mr. Dr. Hendang Tananusaya, founding partner and managing partners of KAP, Darmawan, and Hendang, who will lead the webinar session. Ladies and gentlemen, based on our records, there are around 1,300 participants who join in the session. This is showing that the topic is quite important to understand before it is implemented later in Indonesia. This webinar aims to get input and insight from the community and provide a deeper understanding of key audit matters by paying attention to that implemented in some ASEAN countries as a benchmark. Besides, this webinar also aims to figure out the readiness of the public accountants and other financial practitioners, audit committees, investors, and auditees to come implementation and in audit report, especially in public interest entities in Indonesia. For your information, at the end of 2019, the Indonesian Audit and Assurance Standard Board has published an exposure draft on key audit matters. It is hoped that the second semester of this year, the discussion and further due process will be completed, which will then be determined as an effective standard applied to the entities that must apply this CAM in scope and provision. Through to the event, we hope that CAM, which will be implemented later in Indonesia, can be explored together through discussion and sharing experience on which we have been implemented earlier in some countries in ASEAN. In particular, we can take advantage of sharing experience through discussion with our panelists, namely Mrs. Datuk Zaitun Muhammad Hassan, who will convey her experience from audit committee side in Malaysian perspective, and sharing experience from the investor perspective, which will be delivered by Dr. David Smith. We can share about what must be prepared and considered by the audit committee, directors, commissioners, and investors when auditors apply CAM in preparing audit report. This is very important because this audit opinion will be embedded in the financial statement, which will be used then by stakeholders in evaluating and analyzing the entity's financial statement. Ibu Kusmanis Angkawijaya, our member in IAP also, one of our speakers from the Indonesian Auditing Assurance Standard Board, will share important points related to the draft of the key audit matters. Ladies and gentlemen, we encourage that all participants can take full advantage of this event for brainstorming to convey views or questions to the channels provided. Thank you again to the attendees, speakers, and panelists, as well as to ACCA, IAI, and AFA for your support and cooperation in this webinar. We apologize if there are any shortcomings and inconvenience happen. Have a pleasant joint webinar today, and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih Pak Tarko for your remarks. Next, let us hear from AFA President, Mr. Wantin.
Thank you, Oki. Our fellow organizers, Professor Mario Samu of IAI, Papat Thakur Sunaro of the IAPI, Mr. Phuket Abroad of ACCA, our esteemed speakers, leaders of the ASEAN Federation of Accountants and the ASEAN Federation of Accountants member organization, my fellow accountants from around the ASEAN region, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Selamat siang. On behalf of ASEAN Federation of Accountants, welcome to the virtual webinar jointly organized by AFA, IAI, IAPI, and ACCA on key audit matters. As we are moving towards the end of 2020, Society continues to adapt to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemics, with almost 1 million confirmed cases in Southeast Asia. The ASEAN member states are making continuous progress with their efforts to restore orders and rebuild economies. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone who are severely affected by this pandemic. As a regional body for the ASEAN accountancy profession, we continue to work with our members, organization, partners, and the stakeholders to present you with various updates, resources, and development opportunities. We understand is it even more important now for accountants to see and be seen as relevant in the midst of all the changes? Accountants must take a leadership role in our collective efforts to recover from the socio-economic impacts of COVID-19. For this to happen, we need to uplift the professional standards of the accountancy profession in the region and continues to build the capacity of ASEAN accountants. Today, collaboration is another example how technology has enabled collaboration between stakeholders. So for this year, ASEAN Federation of Accountants has hosted, co-hosted, partnered, supported, and participate in more than 30 regional and international webinars. I believe the trends of the leveraging technology to be connected with our peers and learning from each other will stay as we are progressing steadily towards a new normal. Ladies and gentlemen, as rightly identified by the chairman of the forum in his remarks, today's topics of key audits matter its importance not just for auditors, those in the public practice, but also for accountants in different parts of the profession. Amid the increasing public demands for the better disclosure and transparency of corporate financial reporting, especially from the investor, the professional need to come together in creating a more robust and accountable financial reporting ecosystem. We as a profession need to do more in providing our stakeholders with more information about key audit matters. This will allow users of the financial information the opportunity to better understand the biggest risks in the auditor's consideration. I also believe this could potentially contribute to the quality of financial report and audit. As an auditor and those with governance, we need to focus more on areas requiring the most careful judgment. For the non-auditors, this webinar will be a great opportunity to learn about what key audit matter should mean to you. From preparers, analysts, to those in the academy, I believe all accountants need to be aware of how important key audit matter is on different aspects of our profession. Most importantly, this is an example of how the professional can demonstrate our relevance to the changing demands and expectations from stakeholders. For ASEAN Federation of Accountants, our role is to facilitate sharing, such as today, presenting you with an opportunity to hear firsthand from our regional expert. It is also one of our strategic priorities to support adoption and implementation of international standards in the ASEAN member states. We are indeed privileged to welcome one of the international auditing and assurance standard boards, IAAXP member, Mr. Chu Chong-wee, who will be sharing more about implementation experience so far from selected jurisdictions in the region. I certainly hope you will take advantages of today's excellent race of speakers and get involved in the discussion later. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end my remarks by once again thanking the organizer, IEI, IAPI, and ACCA, and also our esteemed speakers for allowing their time to share with us their expertise, experience, and insight into these very important topics. I look forward to continuing our collaboration with our members organization and to welcome you to our events in the future. Stay safe and take care. Thank you so much. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you, President Wantin. And finally, let us all hear from Professor Mardiasmo, President of IAI. Silakan, Prof.
Sorry. Mr. Balkit Abrol, Regional Director, ACCA, ASEAN, ANZ. Mr. Wantin, President AFA. Mr. Tarko Sunario, President IAP, and Ibu Eli Zani Hussein, Executive Director IAI, and also Mr. Auki Pratama, Executive Director AFA, all speakers, moderators, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. During these challenging times, it is even more important for the accountancy profession to demonstrate its relevance to the stakeholders. Professional accountant can and probably should take a leadership role in providing a sense of accountability and integrity in every aspect of the socio-economic recovery efforts conducted by the governments. The governments around the world continue to introduce various economic policies and incentives to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The role of professional accountants is becoming even more central. None is more important than safeguarding public trust over the distribute and use of these incentives, ensuring the government's objectives when they are met. For professional accountants to play this important role, they need to be equipped the latest know-how and future-looking set of skills that can be found in internationally recognized qualifications, such as chartered accountants. Chartered accountant is a testimony of one's professionalism and commitment to maintain their capacity through continuous professional development, subjected to continuously improve professional standards of quality. Ladies and gentlemen, several financial cases and corporations in Indonesia recently have damaged the public confidence in the entity, especially regarding disclosure and transparency of corporate financial reporting. As a preventive effort from various acts of fraud, IAI always updated the Code of Ethics, which is a guideline for members in carrying out their professional activities. IAI, together with IAP and IAMI, supported by PPPK, have published the 2019 Indonesian Accountant Code of Ethics, which adopted from 2018 International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountant Edition, issued by FX International Ethics Standard Board for Accountants. Yet, it is realized that the general public does not have much ability and support to evaluate a company's audit performance and to understand the significant risks under consideration by auditors. The auditor's disclosure of key audit matters has the potential to bridge this gap. So I repeat, the auditor's disclosure of key audit matters has the potential to bridge this gap. In many cases, key audit matters deal with matters that are complex and significant in corporate financial reporting, such as valuation of goodwill and other long-term assets, valuation of financial instruments, complex or unique aspect of revenue recognition or acquisition accounting. In this webinar, a particular focus area is on international auditing standard or ISA, International Auditing Standard 701, communicating key audit matters and independence audit reports. Additional disclosures and independent auditors report for selected audit, including audit listed companies, will highlight the most significant matters requiring the auditor special attention. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, I would like to call your participation for joining the event of 63rd anniversary of IEI or ERE, which is commemorated through Business, Finance, and Accounting, or the BFA conference on 8 and 10 December 2020. The BFA will present many prominent figures, including Coordinating Minister for Economy, Mr. Erlangga Hartarto, Minister of Finance, Mrs. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Minister of BUMN, Mr. Erick Thohir, Deputy Chairman of BPK, Mr. Agus Joko Pramono, Chairman of BPKP, Mr. Muhammad Yusuf Ateh, and others panelists from PE, OJK, LPS, entrepreneurs, and business practitioners, as well as EAI Council members. Your support will have very positive impact on the success of EAI's 63rd anniversary and for the future development of the Indonesian accountant profession. I wish only best for the future of the accountancy professions and the professional accountant in Indonesia. Stay safe, stay healthy. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Professor Mardiasmo, for the remarks. Now, to start with our sharing session today, let us first hear from our two experts, Ibu Ningsih and Pak Budi, who will share about the fundamentals of key audit matters and what we need to know about their implementation, and also selected examples of more frequently reported key audit matters. I am honored to introduce both Ibu Ningsih and Pak Budi, both of whom I have had the privilege to know and meet back in our standard setting days. First, let me introduce Ibu Kusuma Ningsih Angkawijaya, or Ibu Ningsih. Ibu Ningsih is a member of the Auditing and Assurance Standards Board 1 of IAPI. She is a partner of Kantor Akuntan Publik Sidarta Wijaya dan Rekan, a member firm of KPMG International. And Ibu Ningsih is both a CPA of IAPI and also a CA of IAI. Next, we have Bapak Budi Susanto, or Pak Budi. Pak Budi is the chairman of the Financial Accounting Standards Implementation Team of IAI, atau Tim Implementasi SAK IAI. He is the head of Audit and Assurance as well as partner in charge for Capital Market and IFRS Conversion Service of Kantor Akuntan Publik Sidarta Wijaya dan Rekan, a member firm of KPMG International. Ibu Ningsih and Pak Budi, the next 40 minutes are yours.
Thank you, Pak Oki.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Oki. Let me share my screen first. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so I want to check whether all of you can see my screen, my slides.
Yes, yeah, already clear.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So actually, I cannot turn on my camera. Maybe someone can actually push the instruction. Let me see. So I think I'll start. Okay. First of all, hello everyone. Greeting from Jakarta. Very good afternoon. Selamat siang. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. I'm very delighted with the opportunity to share again key audit matters. The implementations of key audit matters in Indonesia is underway. And trust me that this is the biggest changes and breakthrough in the auditor's reporting. Let me start with a bit of background. So for many years, there was a strong call by investors and others users of financial statements that insist to have more relevant and useful information from the audit. In response to this call, okay, hold on. Okay, I already start my video. Yeah. So in response to this call and demand, the International Auditing and Assurance Standard Boards issue a new and revised enhanced auditor report in 2015. The most significant change in the enhanced audit report, I will call it EAR from now on, is actually the inclusion of KAM, key audit matters, abbreviated as KAM, which is the topic of webinar today. Communicating KAM is the auditor's report is a major breakthrough for both the auditors and also the users. The readers of audit report used to only focus on the kind of audit opinion. I think all of you can resonate it. Yeah. And we are focused on what type of audit opinion, unqualified, qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. Honestly, this is not really giving a lot of value to the readers of auditor's report because it's lacking communicative value. So the EAR and KAM are intended to enhance communicated value by providing more informative and transparent audit reporting, while at the same time providing deeper insights into the company. So as Pak Tarko already mentions that Indonesia as a country that adopts ISA, we have issued the exposure draft of SA 700 series in December 2019. And based on the internal discussion among the boards, we are planning, actually at this moment, we are planning to make it this standard effective in 2022. Yeah, so the time actually is only 13 months from now. If we stick with this effective date, which is for the financial statement audit for the period beginning on or after January 1st, 2022. And we are going to start with the listed entities first. So let's see now the applicability of the ISA 701 or SA 701. KAM is mandatory for audit of complete sets of general purpose financial statements of listed entities. So the question is now, how about the non-listed entities? Well, if law and regulations requires communication of KAM for non-listed entity, for example, public interest entities, then KAM will be applicable for public interest entity. Also, the auditors may decide to communicate KAM for other entities. For example, entity with significant public interest having large number of wide range of stakeholders. So once again, the new requirements are expected to be effective for the financial statement beginning for the period on or after January 1st, 2022, and we are going to start with the listed entity. Are you excited? I'm very excited. And now let's see what are the key changes. Let's see the changes in enhanced audit reporting in a nutshell. The first one, I think the most significant change, something that we're not used to. Usually, we used to see the audit opinion toward the end of the report. But with this EAR, the audit report will go first. Auditor of listed entity will need to report KAMs, as I mentioned earlier. And when material uncertainty about the entity abilities to continue as a going concern exists, then there should be mentions in a separate paragraph in the auditor's report. There also to be a separate sections when an entity prepares other informations in accordance with SA 720. So I already imagine, and also I already see several enhanced audit reporting which consists KAM. The auditor's report will be more lengthy. Normally right now we see audit report maybe 2 pages, 2 to 3 pages. But right now, in the future, when we implement enhanced audit report, maybe the audit report will become maybe 8 pages, up to 10 pages, and can be more. There will be more explicit statement about the auditor independence, and the management responsibility and auditor responsibility will also be more descriptive. And in the futures, as I mentioned earlier, the reader might need more than an hour, maybe an hour or more, to really read the whole auditor reports. So you can imagine, how is the big shift, in our auditor reporting in the near future. So now I think you want to know, I'm sure you want to know, what are the key audit matters? Key audit matters are those matters that in the auditor professional judgment were of most significance in the audit of the entity financial statements of the current period. So the next question is how we are going to determine which matter are KEM. First, KEM are always selected from the matters that auditors have communicated to those charged with governance, let's say audit committee, in accordance with SA 260. KEM will be entity specific. It will be chosen by auditors, not by management, specific to the audit that was performed and based on the auditor professional judgment. In the next few slides, I will walk you through step by step how auditors come up with KEM. So as you can see, there are 3 steps. So the determination of KEM is actually something like a funnel approach. Let's start with step 1. Step 1 is basically the matters communicated to those charged with governance are the starting point. And this process of communications to those charged with governance is not a new procedure. For me, it's not new procedures as auditors, and I'm sure for the audience who are auditors or also audit committee, you can resonate that the communications between auditors and those charged with governance with audit committee are not something new. We already did it, and then we also have the ISA, which is the ISA 260. Let's refresh, what we normally discuss, with the audit committee. First, we mentioned about our responsibility as auditors. We also discuss about the timing of the audit. We also share about the significant risk or risk of material misstatement and also the critical audit areas, including how we respond to those areas. We also maybe share the impact of the new accounting standard, auditing standards to the company, and significant audits, significant findings from the audit, including finding related to the control deficiency. So that's not something new, right? But I think the biggest changes are the communication are not something new. But now, we have the second step, until we get into KEM. The second step is the auditor will be narrowing matters in step 1 to those that require significant auditor attention in performing the audit. So what matters that usually require significant auditor attention? Obviously, matters that we feel or we post challenge when we have to form an audit opinion. The area, perhaps that require increased auditor attentions, or maybe management attention and audit committee attentions, and involve a more senior people to deal with that area. And also area which have a higher risk of material misstatement and require judgment, such as accounting estimate, and also significant event or transactions. So we already complete the step 2, and now let's see, step 3. So finally, in the step 3, auditor will be further narrowing matters in step 2 to those of matters of most significant to the audit in the current period. Only in the current period, not in the corresponding or comparative period. So now the questions is, now we already know how we perform step by step until we come up with KEM. The question now, which and how many matters of most significance to the audit? This is a professional judgment. So there's no standard. There's no standard that specify how many KEMs should be reported. And in fact, it is expected that the number of KEM will vary between entities. Even for the entities in the same industry, don't expect that we are going to have the same number of KEM or similar KEM. It's not always like that. And even for the same entity from year on year. So a matter that is disclosed as KEM in one period does not automatically become KEM in the following year. Why? Because auditor needs to reassess KEM for each period. It depends on the matters that are most significant to the audit in the current period. So now we already know step by step. I think we want to know, what actually are not KEMs. There are some areas which are not KEM. First, KEMs, I think this is very important. KEM is not a substitute of disclosure in the financial statement. So if the management say, I don't want to disclose it, but just disclose it in the CAM, that's not acceptable, because CAM is actually belong to the auditors, is part of the auditor's report. With its disclosure is actually part of the financial statement, which is the responsibility of the management. Also, CAM is not a substitute for modified opinion, and also not a substitute for reporting a material uncertainty related to going concern. Another important thing is CAM is not an implication that a matter that has not been resolved by the auditor, then we can simply just explain in the CAM. If the matter are not resolved, that means the audit have not been completed yet. So cannot be replaced with something that we just simply explain in the CAM. And the other thing is CAM is not a separate opinion on individual matter. Why? Because when we see the auditor report, there is only one opinion that cover the financial statement as a whole. So this is very important, for us to be reminded what are not CAMs. Now I think we want to go to the next one. I think this one have been actually communicated by Pulket during the introduction, so I'm not going over again this slide. And I just want to let you know that Chun Wee will share real examples on the value of CAM that have been realized. And the next slide, as we know, that many countries, even in the ASPAC, have adopted CAM for some years. I think some of them adopted maybe in 2016, some of them maybe in 2015, but at least they have been adopted this for many years. Based on the survey done, it's apparent that most frequently reported CAMs are matters that relate to significant or complex matters disclosed in the financial statements, and also involve estimates and judgment. So you can see in here, some example: impairment of goodwill, difficult and unique revenue recognitions, valuation of PPA, maybe valuation of financial instrument, and maybe the accounting for business combinations. So Pak Budi will share with you several real examples of CAM. And this slide will show a few interesting CAM topics. The slide shows a complex IT system and controls with also CAM. This is something that not going to be associated directly with the disclosure in the financial statement, but it's quite important to be called as a CAM. Later on, I'm going to share with you one example of CAMs that relate to the IT. So before we go to that example, let's see what is the exception of reporting CAM. First, under certain conditions, law or regulations may preclude public disclosure about the matter. So if we have a matter and then we feel this matter should be CAM, however, law or regulation precludes us to disclose it, then under the standards, it's okay. It's an exception. We do not disclose it as a CAM. The other one is the adverse consequence of reporting CAM would reasonably be expected to outweigh the public interest benefit of such communications. So the adverse consequence probably it's more than the benefit that can be gained. So that's what is okay. That's an exception. The third one, if the auditor issue disclaimer of opinion, then there will be no CAM. The last one, I think that's the interesting part. Although the standards give a room for not reporting CAM in a very, very rare situations for most publicly listed entity, I think it will be hard to believe there are no CAMs at all. Why? Because I think there will always be something. There always be something that would require auditor attention. So if that's true, there are no CAM. So my suggestion is discuss that with those charged with governance to really conclude that's true. There's no CAM, especially for listed entity. So let's move to the next one. Which is how are CAM communicated and described. First, CAM is communicated in separate section. So in auditor report, there will be a new section called key audit matter. The heading will be key audit matter. In the key audit matter, there will be some standard language. It's called introductory language, which basically state what CAM is, and to emphasize that this matter will address in the context of the audit of the financial statement as a whole, and informing the audit opinion. So the auditor does not provide a separate opinion on these matters. And after that, the auditor is required to describe CAM in the auditor's report as follows. First, the issue. So the auditor will describe why the matter was considered to be one of the most significant in the audit, and therefore there are CAM. And after that, the auditor should explain how those matters were addressed in the audit, and if those matters can be referenced to the disclosure in the financial statement, then the auditor should put the note disclosure to refer it to the note disclosure in the financial statement. What's the most important thing in here is to make CAM meaningful. The description of CAM should be based on the fact and tailored to the company. So it should not be a boilerplate language. So it should be tailored, specific to the company, informative, concise, and the most important thing is understandable to non-auditor. Because if we read issue, audit response, all these things, auditor can pick it up. But we want to communicate CAM also to the non-auditor, to the users of the auditor report. So the users of auditor report can get the benefit and they can feel that our auditor's report are more meaningful right now. So right now, let's see. I just only have one example. Because Pak Budi are going to show you more examples. The example that I will show in here is actually an example that relates to the information system, which actually I got it from one of the top KPMG, one of the top leadership issue by KPMG. So this slide is an example of CAM section related to information system. So this is the heading, key audit matter in the auditor report, and this is the subheading, IT system and control over financial reporting, and this is the content where the auditor explain why this is CAM. If you can see in here, this is CAM because the key financial accounting and reporting process are highly dependent on the automated controls. So consequently, general IT control and automated control become a risk. So basically the auditor want to communicate that. Then, if you remember, after we explain the issue, then the auditor will explain how that matter was addressed in audit in our audit. So in here we explain that the auditor described the procedures which comprise of general IT control testing and also user access control testing. I'm not going to go through one by one, just to give you a picture about the concept, about the visualization, of CAM. So let's move to the next one. The next slide, until the end of this slide, I think this is the most interesting part, to me. Why? First, we know the key audit matters is driven by the auditing standards. When we talk about the auditing standard, who are actually interested with the auditing standard? Normally, only auditors. In the past, it's always like that. But this standard is a little bit different. I found that this is a rare auditing standards because to successfully execute this standard, all parties in the financial reporting system ecosystem have an important role to play in enhancing the quality of financial statements audit and also financial reporting. To me, it is a game changer in the history of audit report. I think for the whole my professions, this is something like a big shift and something that really new. So now let's see who are affected by these things other than auditors, other than someone like myself, auditor. So let's start, with audit committee. So audit committee, when we talk about CAM, audit committee is in the front line, of the implementation of this standard. So audit committee should start initiating and engaging the discussion with the auditors and strongly consider of doing a dry run. I strongly recommend to consider doing a dry run in 2021, just in case if the standard become effective for the audit of the financial statement beginning on or after 1st January 2022. So next year actually is the right moment to start a dry run. By having a dry run, the audit committee will have the opportunity to engage in early communications with auditors on the area that may potentially become CAM. And with this, audit committee can pay more attention in overseeing financial reporting process and see whether the disclosure in the financial statement are already appropriate and maybe need to be enhanced. Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes, in most cases actually, CAM will have a reference to the disclosure in the financial statement. So Chun Wee will share more about the benefits of conducting a dry run in his presentations, and I'm going to move to the investor. I'm not sure whether there are investors in the audience as a participants. If there are investors, then I would like to share that the biggest advantage of CAM to investor is now the investor will have access to information and will be able to learn in details on the important issues discussed between auditor, management, and audit committee in relation to the audits. In the past, this information is only available perhaps in the boardroom. It's not going to be assessed by investor. But with CAM, investor will have visibility on the audit procedures for its key audit matter, for the matters which are most significant to the auditor. And with that, investor can incorporate the information in the evaluations of individual company, which could assist the investor to make a better and informed decisions. Let's see the next one. The next one is a member of management team. It is also important. It's also play an important role. Management also needs to support and engage in the dry run, agree the audit timeline in advance with the auditors, especially for the first year implementation. And another thing is it's also good for management to revisit financial statement to ensure that they are clear and concise, as CAM often direct users to the notes in the financial statements. And last but not least, of course, regulators. Regulators will play also a very important role in the successful implementations of CAM. Regulators will have a greater visibility on the area which are most significant in the audit and how the auditors address this matter. And regulator will be able to see greater transparency and independence about the audit that was performed. So I have 2 more slides. Almost finished. Now, this one also an important slide. So today, today is already last week of November 2020, right? So time is really flying. We almost end 2020. So basically, if it is effective, if it's become effective in 2022 year-end audit, so we only have 13 months until the standard become effective. So my advice, given the magnitude of these things, and all stakeholders should start preparing themselves for the new world of auditor reporting, my biggest advice to all of you, to all the stakeholders, don't wait until 2022 and get started now. A dry run in 2021 is strongly encouraged so that audit committee, management, auditor might experience the process. This is something new, a big shift, so they get a feel on the process, particularly on the communication part. This communication is not just a verbal communication, but also a writing communication in the auditor report, and understand what might be in the CAM and how they would be described, the style of the language, the tone, all those things. It's very important to discuss as early as possible. So in this way, there will be minimal surprise and delays when the first audit report with CAM is due to be published. Just say, if this one become effective for the audit beginning on or after 1st January 2020, then the first auditor report with CAM will be sometimes in 2023. Sometimes between February to April 2023. Because it's going to be effective for listed company, assuming for December year end. So this is my last slide, the key takeaways. Before I conclude my presentations and pass it to Pak Budi, I would like to summarize some key takeaway. Start early. Yeah, that's definitely very important. Don't wait. Don't wait until the last minute. Don't underestimate. Yeah, although this is just a communication between AC management and auditors. Yeah, but don't undertake a dry run in 2021 audit. Yeah, and educate investor. It's very important to educate investor because this is something new. They are not used, yeah, with the auditor's report, and they have to understand, yeah, what is actually the purpose of CAM. Yeah, I give you an example. Actually, CAM is not an indication about the performance of the company. If we don't educate the investor, investor may have a different view, yeah, incorrect view. They think CAM is actually to measure the performance of the company. No, CAM is not to measure the performance of company. CAM is the communication from the auditors to the stakeholder. This is the area that are most important and how we address that matters. And last but not the least, yeah, actually Indonesia, I would say that although we have not implemented yet, and then maybe we are a bit behind from another countries in the jurisdictions, but I think we keep positive. Yeah, we take benefit. Yeah, because we are maybe not at first, and maybe we are toward actually toward the end in the regions to adopt CAM. So there are many available resources that we can use, and my advice is make use, yeah, of the available resources. So this is the end of my presentations, and thank you for your attentions. And I'm going to hand over this presentation to Pak Budi to continue with some interesting real examples of CAM. So Budi, time is yours. And I'm going to help you to operate the presentation slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinsi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Again, greeting from Jakarta. Hope everyone is stay safe. So I'll just continue on what Ibu Ningsi has conveyed. I think Ibu Ningsi has conveyed in a nutshell and about CAMs. This is really true, a game changer. In a way, this CAM will show behind the scene what the auditors is doing and how we address the audit. Of course, the wording of the CAM has to be concise, clear, and informative to the reader of the financial statements. Some of the challenges has been conveyed by Ibu Ningsi as well. I think in my sessions, I will share some of the most frequently reported CAMs, the key audit matters. I took examples on 6 areas, which is the impairment of goodwill, revenue recognitions, value of PP&E, acquisitions, investments, and investment property. Again, like Ibu Ningsi mentions that the purpose of a CAM is to highlight and give information to the user of the financial statements about how the auditor addressed the significant risks, the area that have significant risks in the company itself. Company by company may be different. One of the things that need to be highlighted is that this is actually a challenge for the auditors when they actually address which pick and choose and which one is going to be put as key audit matters. One of the consideration will not be, so let's say the auditors think that they have spent most of the time looking at specific areas during those particular engagements. There will not be something, there may be consideration for that, but it's not always be an area where an auditor spend most of the time, that will, and then it immediately become a CAM. It's not like that. And also, it doesn't have to be something or some transactions that have a big number of amount immediately become a CAM. If the transaction is straightforward, the accounting is straightforward, it will not create a significant risk to misstatement in the financial statements. It will not be a CAM. So let me go through one by one the examples of the CAM on impairment of goodwill, how the language will be on the key audit matters. So if we look at the impairments of goodwill, the first one, the key audit matters. So there'll always be two sections on this one in the auditor's report. One is the background, which is the key audit matters, and the second one is the sections where the auditors is addressing how they have approached and addressed the key audit matters. So this CAMS is extracted from the report to shareholders of the Media Chinese International Limited, which is as at 31st March 2017. This relates to the impairments of goodwill. This has been selected because it involves critical accounting estimates and judgments, and it's quite significant estimates and judgments where if there is the purpose of this CAM is to highlight to the investors or the retail financial statements that these are significant estimates and judgments. So where they look at the financial statements, they know which area that they need to focus on. If something goes wrong, goes sideways on these estimates and judgments, it will create a significant difference to the results of the financial statements. So the background is the group has a goodwill before impairments of 35.3 million, arising from acquisitions of certain equity interests in Hsinchu Media Corporation Berhad in 2008, which they mentioned as well. There's been disclosed in the notes 4 that as required by IAS 36, impairments are performed for goodwill at least annually and when there is indicator of impairments. So they also mentions the way how the management is assessing the impairments of goodwill, which is looking at the higher value of fair value less cost disposals and value in use, which is a combination of those. Which one is the higher, become direct recoverable amounts. They compare this to the net book values and looking at whether or not there is impairments. So these are key audit matters that they have shared in the report. And if you look at the next slide, this is also describing the things that they have, the management has put in the note 4 about the significant estimates and judgment that they have used, which is their mentions about when they prepare the calculations of the value in use, they're looking at the discounted cash flows, and they use many assumptions, and management exercise significant judgments. One of those is advertising revenue growth and discount rate. So they also mentions that apparently from the testing results, the recoverable amount of the CGU is lower than the carrying amount. And therefore, a provision of impairments of 3.6 million in respect of goodwill was recorded for the year ended 31st March 2017. So they mention as well, the auditors has focused on this area because of the significant balance and significant judgment and assumptions involved. So that's the key audit matters as a background. The next paragraph will address on how the matter was addressed in the audit by the auditors. So they're describing the procedure that they have done on the impairments, the review of the impairments assessments prepared by the management over the goodwill, which is relating to the discounted cash flow, which they have used as a basis to provide the provisions for the goodwill impairments. So they have compared the key input data in management discounted cash flows to the board's approved budgets and business plan. They assess the methodology adopted, mathematical accuracies, and they assess reasonableness in the key assumptions adopted and judgment exercise in discounted cash flows in relation to the two assumptions, the two significant assumption estimates they have described, which one is the advertising revenue growth. They have also described how they have done that, how they have done the assessments on the reasonableness testings, to compare them to the historical performance and the business plans, as well as they also benchmark against the industry forecasts. For the discount rate, they compare with the cost of capitals by comparable companies. So this is the way they assess on the key assumptions. So in overall, they also mentions about the conclusions, mentions about the conclusions after they perform all the procedures, they found that the key assumptions adopted by the management is supportable and evidence has been gathered, so they are comfortable with the unqualified opinion, let's say, for examples. So that's first examples taken from the Media Chinese International Limited. Second one is one of the topics as well that's quite often been raised as scam. One is this is relating to the revenue recognitions. This scam is extracted from the report to the members of United Singapore Airlines Limited, which is 31st March 2020. The source is 2019-2020 annual report. So again, first they describe the background. The key audit matters, they refer to the Note 2T about revenues and Note 3Cs about the passenger revenue recognitions. So they describe about this one is disclosed because there is a significant estimates involved. So let's look at how they actually describe in the CAM. One, the background is that the passenger revenue is not recorded immediately. So described about the policies where the passenger revenue is not recorded immediately on sale of flight tickets, but it's deferred and to be recorded at a later time as revenue in the profit and loss when the passenger is flown. This is very common for airline companies where basically they have sold the tickets in advance. The passenger may fly a month later, maybe 6 months later. If they go for promotion, sometimes they can also sell a ticket for 1 year later flight schedules. So the passenger revenue, when the amount is received and the cash consideration received, is not immediately recorded as revenue, but is deferred as an account in the liabilities. And then they mentions about the policy that the deferred revenue is presented in the statement of financial positions as sales in advance, which is liabilities in the balance sheets in the statement of financial positions, and it's measured based on the sales price to the customer net of the ticket breakage, discounts and rebates. So this one become creating a significant accounting estimates. This is supposed to be a straightforward accounting policy, but then become involving a significant estimates when the COVID-19 outbreaks came in. So the global COVID-19 outbreak was declared by WHO on 11 March 2020 to be a pandemic, and many countries have put travel restrictions. The passenger requirements in response was a lot of flight was being cancelled, either cancelled by the passengers or even the company itself has to reschedule some of the flight and maybe postpone some of the flights. So this flight cancellations has caused a significant reductions in the number of passenger revenues and forward bookings, and this has also creating necessities to pay refunds to the customers. So previously, when the company deferred the revenue from the amount received from the customers for advance sales of the tickets, they were not even thinking to refund it. It's actually a deferred revenue rather than financial liabilities. But now there is a possibility that they need to do some refunds. Then the group has initiated changing in ticket terms and conditions for certain affected ticket holders, which include extensions of ticket validities amongst other measures. With these measures, so again, based on these conditions, the historical informations that were previously used by the management or even used by the auditors to test how the management is doing the estimates is something that it can't be used because the trends is not something that has been seen in the past. So they need to think something else because they need to do some reassignations. So the amount of revenue to be recognized for each flight as it is flown, relies on complex IT internal systems and handles large volumes of transactions and data, includes exchange of information with industry system and partner lines. So this creates a whole bunch of complexity, not just because the historical data is not supporting, that they need to create significant new information to create new estimations. And this estimation is quite significant because it will eventually drive to the amount of revenue being recorded or some of the liabilities that need to be refunded and so forth. Not to mention the things that they mentioned about involvement of IT, complex IT internal systems, and some checking to the other industry systems. So they put this as one area to be highlighted in the camp. So and then in the next slide, so you can see that this is how the auditors is addressing the risk that they have highlighted. So they have whole discussion with senior management. So they, through these discussions, they review the group announcement and they commented the internal policies and approvals. And this is they understood that the group changes the ticketing terms to this affected ticket holders. And they also analyzed the impacts of the canceled and disrupted flight as a result of this pandemic. And they performed data analytical routines of our passenger revenue recognized during flight cancellation periods. This is to actually to test or the new estimates are that the management has made where the historical data was not being able to be used. They also perform a test of details over a sample of passenger revenue to ascertain its appropriate recognitions of flight update. In addition, they also recomputed underlying operating system statistics of the group to enable the auditors to perform analytical reviews of the passenger revenue balance given significant changes witnesses as compared to historical periods arising from the pandemics. And again, at the end, they put the conclusions. Sorry, this is not the end. They also assess the revised ticket breakage estimates, taking into account revisions to the ticket terms. Just to check the accuracies of the revenue recorded by the passenger revenue systems, they test the computer system controls, which includes the IT environments, user access, program change controls, application controls, and so forth. They also test the computer systems selectively. They also change direct assistance from the group internal auditors to test the effectiveness controls in the passenger revenue accounting process at various overseas stations. So this is how they describe, and then eventually they conclude that this they put the conclusions whether or not they're comfortable with the results of the how the management has concluded and put in the financial statements. So that's the second examples. Yeah, another one is on the valuation of PP&E. This one is extracted from the report to shareholders of Orica Limited, 30th September 2019. So the key audit matters, the background that they've described, they refer to the note 7 of the financial report. This is in regard to the carrying value of property, plant, equipment associated with the technical ammonium nitrate plants on the Burrup Peninsula. So they call it Burrup plant. So this is in relation to the group carrying value assessments of the PP&E associated to the Burrup plants, which has disclosed in the note 7 to the financial statements. Where they mentions in the group 7 and in the note 7 that the plan asset considered to be defective and requires some replacements. And this one mentions that the group concluded that they have to recognize write-down about 155 million. And they also mentions why they put this as CAM, because one is because of the size of the carrying values, and Second one is because of the significant judgments. They focus on the assumptions that the group applied in their assessments, including the appropriateness of the approach, the cost to replace the defective equipment, and the timing and extent of the rectification of the work. So this is a background. These are procedures that they have done. They consider the appropriateness of the approach. They test the controls. They test the. They also looking at the scope and competence and objectivity of the group and the group's internals and external engineering experts, which was assist in quantifying the cost to replace the defective equipment, because some of the informations for replacing the defective equipment is coming from either internals of the group and also external. If this is coming from the internals, the auditors has to assess the scope of the reviews by the internals teams, also the competence of the people, the technicians, and the objectivity, whether or not they have a tendency to lower the amounts or to higher the amounts and so forth. They also test the accuracy of the cost to replace the defective equipment to determined by the group on a sample basis. So this is on the valuations of PB&E. I think I will not go through the next procedures. Being described in the reports. I think.
Excuse me, Pak Budi.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could try to wrap up your presentation in the next 5 minutes, Pak, if possible.
Oh, sure. That's why
Sorry, Pak.
I just mentioned.
Excuse me, Pak Budi.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could try to wrap up your presentation in the next 5 minutes, Pak, if possible.
Oh, sure. That's why
Sorry, Pak.
I just mentioned. That's why I just mentioned that maybe I will not be able to go through most of the procedures here, because I just heard some of the timings I think running out. Okay, I'll go to the next one. So this one is on the acquisitions. So the acquisitions was well, not all of the acquisitions has to be included. This one is included as CAM because the group has involved a significant intangible assets, and this involves even estimates and judgments and how they value the intangible assets, and this also includes over the remaining 21 equity interests. So this one was put in the CAM, and the addressed the risk because there is a significant assets and the put and call options. Go to the example 5. This is the accounting for investment in Pioneer Food Group Limited. This one is included because the group is thinking about determinations, timing, when the exact investment has to be put as an asset held for sale, and this has been put as a CAM because it involves significant judgment and estimates and how they actually determine the timing and whether or not they have to put this as non-current asset held for sale. And it helps the audit, the investors or the user of financial statements to look into specifically in the area where specifically in the area where the company has the risk. So this but this will create some challenges, like Ibu Ningsih mentioned about the timetables. Dry run that Ibu Ningsih is highlighted is something that probably is a good things to be explored. I think that's all I can mention and convey for my presentations. And very sorry for the delays. And back to you, Balki.
Yes, that's fine, Pak Budi, and thank you, Ibu Ningsih, and also Pak Budi for that comprehensive sharing. I'm sure many of our participants who have just heard about key audit matters today will appreciate that overview and also the key examples of more frequently reported camps that you have shared, Pak Budi. And participants, if you have any interest in digging deeper about the examples that Pak Budi has just mentioned, don't forget to go to our Slido link, so you can always submit your question there, and we can always discuss that in further details during our Q&A session later. And ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I would like to now present you with our second keyword for the day. So our second keyword for the day is audit. So I repeat, the second keyword for today is audit. Do not forget to collect all 3 keywords presented throughout this webinar as part of the requirements for collecting your e-certificate. So just to repeat again, the second keyword for today is audit. Next, let us hear about the experience of selected jurisdictions in their CAMS journey from my good friend, Bapak Chu Chunwi or Pak Chunwi. Pak Chunwi is ACCA's Regional Head of Policy for ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. He is also a board member of the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, or AIAASB. He has more than a decade of experience in public accounting, audits, advocacy, and policy works across Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And AFA has certainly benefited from many of his good works and insights on many of our development activities in the region. Pak Chunwi, you have 30 minutes to impress us with your presentation, Pak.
Terima kasih, Pak Oki. Thank you so much, everyone. Let me try to share my screen first to make sure that my slides are on. Okay. Can I confirm that you're able to see my slide? Fantastic. Thank you so much. And a very, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm truly delighted to be with you this afternoon talking about a topic that I'm personally very passionate about. I truly believe in the value of key audit matters, truly believe in the new auditor's report. So I think a theme that you have been hearing throughout this webinar so far from the different speakers is how important it is for all the players within the financial reporting value chain to come together and to make this happen, to realize the value and to maximize the value. This is not just for the auditors, this is not just for investors, for audit committees, or for management. It's actually for everybody. And it is quite important that we all come together and understand what this is all about. I think Bu Ningsih and Pak Budi has done a brilliant job just introducing what CAM is about to all of us. As with everything that is new, there will be, I'm sure, a lot of question marks in our mind. And there will be some hesitation as well. Will there be unintended consequences from the implementation of CAMS? So as you listen to all the presentation, I'm sure you have a lot of questions in your mind. Now, the good news is this has been effective in many parts of the world for the past few years now, including a few jurisdictions within our region. So my role today in my next 30 minutes is to share with you some highlights, some headline findings from the research that we have done and research that others have done in terms of that experience. So I will predominantly be looking at the experience of Singapore because let me assure you, in terms of the key benefits that people are seeing and the key challenges that people are seeing, is actually very consistent. And I've looked at quite a lot of the reports around this area. So I'm going to just focus on Singapore to draw some of those key themes. And in terms of the value, I think all of us can therefore look forward to realizing those values in Indonesia and in those countries in Southeast Asia where this has not been a fact yet. And also the challenges and hurdles. I think knowing what other people have gone through will put us in a better place to be prepared for those challenges and to be better prepared in terms of overcoming them. So my sharing will be focusing on the Singapore experience. It's based on the report that we did with the regulator in Singapore, ACRA, and with the local body, ISCA, with academia, NTU as well. And then we did one in Malaysia with AOB and MIA. And then globally, there was another piece. So I'm going to draw bits and pieces from the various reports to share with you some of those highlights. So what did we do? There were a few things that we did that went with this very robust research. We did a survey with predominantly investors and another group of audit committees. So we're going to hear mainly their experience, audit committees and investors. We did a desktop research of reports that got issued, looking at the CAMs that were disclosed, looking at the associated financial reporting disclosure, and including the report from the previous year to see how it has evolved. We also did roundtables with investors, with audit committees, with practitioners as well. So what did we find? Let me just start from the numbers. In terms of the number of key audit matters reported in the first year, in Singapore, it was an average of 2.3. And in Malaysia, it was an average of 2.1. So is this right or not right? I think as Ibu Nishi said, is a matter of professional judgment. It has to be as many as it needs to be. And you can see the full range of numbers in the chart over there. If you compare that against UK, which were, I guess, in terms of adoption of this requirement, they were the world pioneer. In the first year, they have 4.2. In the second year, they have average of 3.9. Now, in the roundtable, we raised that as a question to our participants, and we asked them, does this look right? Do you think it's okay that we have less than UK? So there was this one group that said, well, actually, in terms of the kind of listed companies that we have compared to the UK, they're probably a little bit smaller. They are not as multinational, just generally comparison. So it appears to be right that we have lesser in terms of the numbers of CAMs. But there was another group who said that, well, UK is probably a little bit ahead in terms of sophistication of their financial reporting system. And therefore, you would expect to see maybe more issues coming out from our part of the world. Now, one of the key thing or the key message that I want to put through here, which I think Ibu Nishi also mentioned, that this is not a measurement of the performance of management. We understand that in practice, there were negotiations that went on. So the auditors with the audit committees as the mediator and then the management are trying to negotiate a number of key audit matters that they can report on because there has been this perception that it is a measurement of my performance. So the more you report, the worse off I am. But that's definitely not true. So maybe a little bit of education is needed. But I think we should absolutely take this opportunity, I think from a management, from an AC perspective, because as you disclose all these key audit matters, as the auditors disclose the key audit matters, it is an opportunity for you to enhance the disclosure from an AC perspective, from an annual report, from a financial reporting perspective. It shows that you are on top of all this issue, and it shows that management are really doing what is necessary to make sure that things are running smoothly and properly. So perhaps look at it from that perspective and not let the number deter you from truly using this opportunity to communicate with investors and other stakeholders. So EAR, you see this word used in my slide, and we use it to represent enhanced auditors report. So that's the new format of reporting. It has boost value of audit, it has boost confidence, as well as enhanced corporate disclosure. And we look at some of those. So 89% of the investors to our survey say that they will read the report before the financial statements. And I think all of us will agree that financial reporting is getting more and more complicated. And especially from a layman investor's perspective, it's going to be a challenge for them trying to navigate the entire financial statements. Someone actually described CAMS as the cover on top of a jigsaw puzzle. So you go to the financial statement, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You get a little bit lost, you don't know where to start. And the cover actually gives you that overview and give you, tell you where you need to be focusing on. So investors are telling us that it makes it easy for them to identify the key investment risk, help them understand the hidden risks as well, and what measures management have taken to address those issues. So there are investors who say, this allows them to actually formulate proper smart questions to raise to the management. So looking at whether they like the new report or the old report, from investors' perspective is an 65% majority, and audit committees as well as majority, 76%. But of course, we shouldn't ignore those who actually say they actually do not prefer or they do not have a preference. Now, I think what it's telling us is giving more, because as Bunishi said, from a 2-page boilerplate, now you have a much more descriptive 3, 4, 5 pages of the report. So you would expect that people like it, but I think the message here is giving more doesn't necessarily mean that people will appreciate it. You need to give more that is meaningful, that is helpful, that is targeted at their need. And we'll talk a little bit more about how, I guess, CAM can be further refined and improved as we go along in a few slides. The new audit report result in you having better insights into financial reporting risk, better insights into how auditors conduct audits, and more confidence in the quality of audit? The answer is, again, majority from both investor and audit committee community. And I think it's particularly remarkable for audit committee because the role of audit committee is to actually work very, very closely with auditors. So you would assume that they already have deep insights into all these different things. And yet the fact is having CAMS, having that conversation actually result in them enhancing and going that step up. So this is all very positive to see. Now, I was reading recently a report from the US regulator, because in the US, like in Indonesia, they are a little bit behind the international in terms of implementing CAMS. For them, it's CAM, it's also pronounced CAM. And recently there was a report that came out that investigate their first year experience as well for the large issuer. And actually in the US, it has been delayed a little bit because there were a lot of concern raised in the process of setting up this requirement. And some of the concerns were around, if you're going to let the auditors go out and talk about CAM, will it actually result in us, having lesser conversation between the audit committee, management, and auditors? Because audit committee and management may feel like, they shouldn't be saying too much, right? They should be, reserving some of those information in case auditors go out and, broadcast those information in CAMS. Well, the reality is, and based on that particular survey done by the US regulator, only less than 2% of the participants say that it has indeed resulted in lesser communication, but a much, much bigger 41% say that it has resulted in enhanced communication. And it is a similar finding from our research as well. 74% of our audit committee respondents say that CAMS have led to more robust discussion between management and auditors. In fact, in the roundtable, we had audit committee chairs who told us that they love CAMS. They love the whole experience because in the past, the executive directors, those who are not in the audit committee, will say that financial reporting, that is your responsibility as AC. So I'm going to pass it to you, okay? I'm not going to, step forward and do too much about it. But as a result of CAM, because you're inviting people into your house, so people are going to see, how neat and clean it is. So everyone starts to tidy it up a little bit more. So it has actually resulted in even executive directors taking a lot of interest in financial reporting. And because CAMS relates to those issues that auditors are most concerned about, having more conversation around that can only be a great thing. So, the audit committees are saying they engage auditors more, and everyone is taking an interest, and the AC meeting has indeed become more focused. Another fantastic value add from CAM is that financial reporting has improved. So 40% of the financial statements that we have investigated actually had enhanced disclosure compared to the previous year as a result of CAM. And this is going back to what I said earlier. So if you have people coming to your house, you want to make sure that everything is nice and tidy. So I'm going to give you just one very quick example. This was a disclosure in 2015 before CAM, and then this was a disclosure in 2016, which was as a result of CAM enhanced in terms of what they say. It's not just longer. If you look at the content, it is about cost study is about percentage completion, revenue recognition, and you can see that in the enhanced disclosure, management, CFO, and the team really put in more effort to make sure that what they are saying is relevant in terms of the understanding for the users. So because of time, I won't go through in detail, but you'll get a copy of all the slides. And this is just one great example of how things have improved. And this sentiment or this observation has also been echoed by the ACs as well. So 52% said that as a result of CAM, the financial statements has moderately or significantly improved in terms of disclosure as well. So this AC told us that in all the boards that I sit on, we took opportunity to review the significant accounting standards and notes. And this resulted in fewer words, less repeat, and more readability. So people are excited now that I'm putting in all the effort to prepare my financial statements and people are actually going to look at it. I'm going to put in more effort to make sure that people really understand and it's more readable. So that's all fantastic. And in Singapore, audit committees are not required to issue their own separate report. But as a result of CAM, we actually had the regulators coming together with the stock exchange, encouraging AC to disclose their views, especially on the areas that CAMs disclose as well. And as a result of that, 33% of the report that we reviewed had voluntary reporting by the AC. And out of which about 50% you see wordings that are quite similar to CAM. So I think the AC look at what auditors have disclosed in CAM and they just sort of modify it a little bit and bring it over to their own audit report, AC reporting. But the really encouraging thing is about 50%, 53% actually provided further insights beyond CAMs. And I'm going to show you one example. So this was a CAM that was disclosed by the auditor. This is again relating to revenue recognition. So the auditors was just telling the reader what they have done in terms of audit procedures to address the risks that they have identified. And you can see here, audit committee actually picked up audit recognition as well, but they did not just copy and paste what the auditors have said. They actually told the reader what they, as the committee, have done, including overseeing the implementation of the new billing system, including reviewing the revenue performance each quarter, comparing against the previous period, and making sure that management has a reasonable and good explanation on all the variances. So imagine you as the investors, imagine you as the reader, looking at these two reports. I think you will agree with me that they really complement each other really well. And it shows you that the entire system is working very well to make sure that what is presented in front of you is making sense and is really meaningful. So investors as well, they like that AC are reporting their views on CAMs. So 67% said yes. Again, this is Singapore where there's no compulsory reporting. So it's very encouraging that investors actually see it and they really like it. And AC also, they like it. They don't see it as a task that's been given to them, additional role. They think that it's very important because it shows that how they have discharged their duties. And one of the AC told us that before just doing their own, they have looked at the AC report in the UK listed company, and he really liked it because it shows what they have done, which is extensive. And he mentioned at the end of it, it helped to justify the fees that independent directors are getting as well. So the other great thing is auditors are really spending more time as a result of CAM, engaging audit committee and management. And this is seen by both the AC and investors. So you can see here that in terms of the AC, 79% said that they are seeing incremental efforts by the auditors, and investors, an overwhelming 85%. Now, again, let me just bring you back to reality. AC work closely with auditors, so they obviously can see the incremental effort. But investors, they are not privy. They can't see what is happening behind the scene. They can't see the auditors doing their job. They can't see all those conversations. So their 85% over here is really truly based on the CAM's disclosure. So on the quality of the CAM, they can actually tell that auditors are actually putting in more effort and they are acknowledging that, which is fantastic. One of the concerns that many have in terms of CAMs is that it will delay the issuance of the report, right? And we can see here that, in Singapore, we did this check. Most of it was signed off earlier or on the same day as the previous year. And I was looking, as I mentioned, at the US report as well. And it was the same thing. They had the same concern, right? Before implementing it, they were like, will it result in delay? But in US case as well, they did not actually see a delay. And part of the reason was because a lot of effort were put into preparing for this before the financial year end. And it is back to what Boon and she has said earlier, dry run. So preparing now, even if, for example, Indonesia, your effective date is 2022, you should take 2021 as an opportunity to do the right dry run. And there need to be constant communication between the management, between AC and the auditors in terms of what probably would make sense to come out in the CAM. So this is all very helpful. And so the preparation that goes into it is very, very important. So can the report be further improved? So we see, I guess, very promising and very encouraging result from the first year of implementation. But the question is always, can it be better, right? So we asked a few questions. I'm just going to share a couple of the response with you. We asked them, are the CAMs sufficiently tailored, right, to help investors understand the challenges faced by the auditor? So we know that there's a wide range of CAMs that are out there, and some of it boils down to the policy within the firms as well. And so some firms are a little bit more conservative. They want to make sure that the wording are all legally sanctioned, etc. So in this case, audit committees, they feel that it is definitely tailored. So 92% are quite happy with that. But how about investors? And you can see that there's a discrepancy. And I think it is not difficult to imagine, because from the AC perspective, because they have been involved, they know the company very well, they've been involved in the conversation. So sometimes you need to really take a step back and look at it from the other party's perspective, and to make sure that it's clear, even if it's someone who do not actually have all the information in front of them. And actually, bolder insight is something that they are looking for from CAMs. So it's not just a boilerplate. You need to give them more insights, bolder insights. And I'm going to give you one example here. So this is a generic description of CAM, and this is relating to revenue recognition. So sales cutoff, and if you look at the wording, revenue is recognized because you need to make sure that transfer of risk and rewards is done before it is closed at the year end. And you can basically pick this up and apply to every single other company as well. So it's very generic, it's not telling you a lot. And here is another example, and it is an example of a tailored revenue recognition policy, right? So again, this is the CAM description. So it talks about the risk, right? So as the group arrange for shipment under various shipping terms, any lapse or delay will affect the timing, right? And also it's linking it back to the remuneration of the directors and key management personnel, right? Because they're remunerated based on performance, profit sharing bonus scheme. And therefore there is an incentive for them to manipulate. So if you look at overall, there is a risk that revenue could be overstated. So it helps the reader understand, okay, so this is the real risk. So, and then you go on to the next step and to understand how the auditors are actually addressing those risks. So this is the bolder insights that people are really looking for. Conclusion. So as you have seen from the earlier presentation by Bunishi and Budi, you actually don't have to give conclusion per se on each of the CAM, because the conclusion is on the overall financial statements audit. But you can see here again from the AC and from the investors, they really want the auditors to give a conclusion. So one of the investors say, if you don't give me that conclusion, it's like reading a book but skipping the final chapter over here. And when we look at, in those reports that we look at, we have about 50% of those camps where the auditors voluntarily disclose the outcomes, and then the rest did not. But out of those who disclosed the outcome, majority, a big majority, 96% actually gave a basic conclusion. So they talk about the risk, they talk about how they're managing it, and then they end up by saying, oh, we found it to be reasonable. Okay, we did not find any exception. So this is what we call basic conclusion. But there were some that actually gave even bolder insights. And I have two particular examples down there. One of them, one of the auditors say, we found the discount rate to be at the lower end of the range. So what that means is that, in terms of that valuation, you actually have a bigger number than if your discount rate is at the middle or higher end of the range. And the other one said that growth rate has exceeded historical performance. Okay, but they have used a reduced growth estimate and they agree that there's no impairment. But it does say a little bit more about the, I guess, aggressiveness of management in terms of how they are going into their financial reporting preparation. One of the important things that we want to just remind all of us to think about is under financial reporting, there is, of course, this requirement to disclose areas of critical judgment and estimates. So this is something that all of us are very familiar with. So in the reports that we investigated, we actually did a count of the average number of areas with critical judgment and estimate that were disclosed by management, and it came out to 4.8 in terms of the average number. And if you remember, I mentioned that the average number of camps is 2.3. Now, should they be the same? Now, the answer is no, right? It does not have to be the same because it's looking at it from different perspective. Okay, camp is from the auditor's audit risk perspective, and of course, the other one is from a financial reporting perspective. But you would agree, I'm sure, with me that there are a lot of overlaps. So I think what you have to make sure, and I speak from the AC perspective, is to make sure that where there is a gap, it should be reasonable and justified. So this is one of the important tips that I thought I would want to share with you. So I'm coming to the last segment of my presentation, what lies ahead. At the end of each of the study, we asked the respondent in the survey, what do you think will happen in 5 years' time? So there are two scenarios that we are given them. One is that CAM will become boilerplate, right? And then everyone will lose interest, so it will lose its value. And the other one was that, well, this is just the first year, and we're just getting started. We're just getting everyone interested, getting everyone knowledgeable about what CAMS is about. And when people know what CAM is, investors especially, they will eventually use it as a tool to greater engage the management. So we have two options, right, given to the survey respondent, and we asked them to predict what happened 5 years down the road. And it was very, very encouraging indeed to see that 71% of the AC and 81% of the investors think that CAM will become a much better engagement tool going forward. So this is good news for all of us. So I guess just taking a little step back, well, we are all very excited about the potential of CAM. If we're expecting CAM to really resolve all the issues of the world, I think we might be sorely disappointed, because it is just one cog in the wheel, right? So this is just one tool. It's a very important tool and with lots of promise, but it is just one tool. And if you look at this, extracted from the previous CEO of IFAC, Faiz Chowdhury, he said that a more holistic view of financial reporting is needed, and you need the entire financial reporting supply chain to be involved as well. So this is really going back to my very first point about everyone needing to play your part, your role in this. And this slide, we have captured some of the key things that we think people should be thinking about. For auditors, make sure that it is fit for purpose. Use this opportunity, make it tailored, make it as concise and readable as possible, but make it fit for purpose. From the AC, from the preparer's perspective, make the opportunity to engage your investors, right? We always hear a lot of CFOs and preparers saying, you know, I invest so much effort into financial reporting, invest so much effort to doing my financial statements, annual report, but you know how many people actually read it? So this is really an opportunity. Provide insights in AC reporting, enhance disclosure in financial statements, be very proactive, discussing camps with your auditors and engaging with your shareholders, your investors, and other stakeholders through this conversation. And from the investor's perspective, make sure that you read camps and make sure that you challenge it, right? Because one of the concern is that, you know, camp in the first year may be exciting, second year slightly less exciting, and after that it becomes a bit boring to read. So it is your role to continuously challenge it. And you know the company based on all this other information that are out there. So maybe, you know, you should raise your hand and ask, why is, you know, this particular issue not in camps? You know, I'm reading all about it. I think it's a big issue. Maybe you can explain to me why this is not in there, right? So this is really just an opportunity for all of us to come together and work together to maximize the value. My last slide here, and this is from one of the roundtable participant audit committee, is say that, you know, as independent auditor, we are responsible to everyone, not just minority shareholder. We should take the best foot forward on a good practice and think about it as an opportunity. How do you enhance your company's standing in the eyes of investors? How do you drive up the share price? And if you're more engaged, you also get a better valuation. So with that, I conclude and I look forward to the discussion and Q&A later on. Thank you very much, and back to you, Pak Oki.
Thank you, Pak Chun Wee, for that insightful sharing and also excellent time management. Ladies and gentlemen, continuing with what Pak Chun Wee has shared in his presentation, I am pleased to present you with our next session, where we will be hearing from a prominent leader in the region with vast experience in various audit committee roles, and also from our investor representative, whom I believe will provide an interesting view on camps. So for the next 60 minutes, I will pass the session to our moderator, Dr. Hendang Tanusjaya or Pak Hendang. He will be leading our panel session with Dato' Zaitun Muhammad Hasan and also Dr. David Smith, continued with a Q&A session with all of our speakers. So Pak Hendang is currently serving as the lead for Accountant Forum for Financial Services sector of IAPI. He is also a national board member of both IAPI and also the Indonesian Institute of Management Accountants atau Institut Akuntan Manajemen Indonesia IAMI. Pak Hendang is a managing partner of Kantor Akuntan Publik Darmawan Hendang Kaslim dan Partner and a member firm of AGN International Limited. A lecturer of the Faculty of Economics and Business of Universitas Indonesia and Universitas Tarumanegara, Pak Hendang is also an advisory member of CPA Australia Indonesia. Silakan Pak Hendang.
Okay, thanks Pak Oki. Good afternoon to all of participants and especially for the distinguished panelists, Mr. Zaitun and Mr. David, and also our IAPI chairman, Pak Tarko masih ada di sini ya. Welcome to our panelist discussion about the key audit matters. Before I start, I will introduce you about the CV of two additional respected panelists for our discussion, Datuk Zaitun and Dr. David Smith. As you can see in the shared screen, Datuk Zaitun is a fellow and global council member of ACCA and a deputy chair of the IFAC PAIB, atau Professional Accountant in Business. She starts her career with PwC and then moved on to work in the banking sectors, including serving Malaysia's largest bank, Maybank, in various senior positions. She's also started and was the president of Malaysia's second rating agency, Malaysian Rating Corporation Berhad, for 8 years. And critical to our panel discussion today, she has extensive experience as an independent director, currently holding position as chairman of the Development Bank of Malaysia, Chairman of the Board Governance and Audit Committee of Sime Derby Plantation Benhart, Malaysia's largest public listed plantation company. That's all about Datuk Zaiton. We are happy to have you on this webinars. And the second panelist is David Smith. Dr. David Smith is a senior investment director based in Singapore at Aberdeen Standard Investment, where he leads ESG, environmental, social, and governance research and integration across Asia. David heads the Asia Responsible Investing Pod, which oversees the day-to-day running of the Asian Sustainable Development Equity Fund and is a member of the GIM Responsible Investing Pod. He's also responsible for leading engagement with board members and management of Aberdeen Standard Investment company in Asia. David spearheads our public advocacy on ESG issues, representing the company at a leading international organization dedicated to improving corporate best practice. He has appeared frequently at regional conference and industry roundtable, and has written for various newspaper and professional publications globally. Before joining Aberdeen in 2011, he worked for IWS as head of Asia ex-Japan's research. David has a PhD in corporate governance and an MA in corporate strategy and governance from the University of Nottingham and a BSc in business economics from the University of Wales. He's a CFA charter holder. As the panel chair, I will dedicate the first part of the panel to posing questions to our respected panelists. Datuk Zaiton, representing Audit Committee chairs, and Dr. David Smith, representing the investors community, to draw out your experience regarding the key audit matters before proceeding with the Q&A from the audience as well. The question has been designed to be open and broad-minded and are interconnected. So please feel free to share your experience and thought based on your preferred structure group as follow. So first, I will ask the question for Datuk Zaiton. There are two questions for you. It's about 2.5 minutes. Number one is, how has the overall experience on CAM been for you as an audit committee chair? Bagaimana pengalaman Anda secara keseluruhan diperkaitkan sebagai ketua komite audit? So, please, Zaiton.
Assalamualaikum and a good afternoon from Kuala Lumpur. As audit committee chair, I actually welcome the introduction of key audit matters because it has been my practice when we have private discussion with the auditors, what we call the in-camera session. My frequently asked question of the auditors is always, what were the most difficult issues in your discussions with management in arriving at the audited report? So having the key audit matters just gives the framework within which to have that discussion with the external auditors. If you look at the recent roundtable of the IAASB, which I've attended, survey among both auditors, people in practice, as well as professional accountants in business, have actually highlighted that key audit matters is perhaps one of the most useful and well accepted standards which has been introduced by IASB. And this really focuses the discussion of the audit committee as well as the auditors and in fact the management of the company on what are the key areas. So I actually very much support the suggestion by Bu Ningsih about having the trial run, because that's exactly what I did. When key audit matters was introduced in Malaysia for 2016, I actually had a trial run with our auditors for the accounts for 2015. Because as a person, I do not like surprises. And so I want to see what is this like. I did a lot of research into markets which have introduced key audit matters earlier than Malaysia, and looked at their experience, read the reports. Some markets had already introduced this about 2-3 years already. And you can see the evolution of the key audit matter report itself. You can see the changes over the years. So all this was important homework to do before you yourself are faced with key audit matters in your own financial statements. And I think this really focuses your attention. And I would like to say that key audit matters is not something that I look at only when the auditors are preparing the auditor report. I look at key audit matters throughout the year. And it is really our avenue also for us to be able to keep the management on their toes, to keep reporting back to the audit committee on how the key audit matter issues are being addressed in the company. This also changes the flavor of the audit committee report to investors. In the past, if you look at many years ago, people used to put the terms of reference of the audit committee in their audit committee report. You don't do that anymore, right? Because the terms of reference can be read on your websites. What is important is what is the work of the audit committee during the year to satisfy investors that you have actually done your job. And the key audit matters is something that you definitely have to pay attention to, because when the auditors actually cover it in their report, you cannot leave the matter open-ended, right? If it is important issue being highlighted by the auditors, investors would want to know how you as the audit committee have actually monitored and made sure that these issues are being addressed, that the areas of judgment which has been exercised by management are sound and based on best practice. And therefore, it is a lot of work. It also, brings, I completely endorse the view that it brings the whole board into the discussion and not just the audit committee, because it is how basically you run your organization and you run the company. It is not just an accounting issue. Yeah, because I always say, especially to non-accountants, that an accountant is basically a financial statement. When I was in Tabung Haji, which is a pilgrim fund, many of our stakeholders may not understand what accounts is. So I use a very simple analogy. Accounts is actually a mirror. It really shows what your company is all about. And, in terms of that mirror, you have to ensure that if you want to look good in the mirror, you have to work at it. It doesn't just happen. And therefore, it is very, very important. It is more than just financial reporting. It is how risks are managed within the company. It is how things are brought together, and in our situation like Samdabi, Plantation Berhad, where I chair the governance and audit committee, quite often certain issues that need to be discussed. We even have a joint meeting between the audit committee and the risk committee. And therefore, it brings the rest of the board into the discussion when you're looking at the financial statements and these issues. So I think overall, I certainly professionally take it on board. I think it is part of in fact, it makes our job easier. It focuses the discussions. Of course, we discuss a lot of things and we look at a lot of things. We don't just look at things which are going to be highlighted by the auditors in the key audit matters, but I dare say that the issues highlighted by the auditors in the key audit matters actually is reflective of how the board, how the management run the company. And it is something that we should all pay a lot of attention to, and What was the second question again? If you don't mind flashing it, I just want to make sure that I cover that as well. This is the experience. What was the second question again?
Pak Endang, I think you're on mute.
It has been a few years since CAM has become effective in Malaysia. One of the concerns raised about CAM is that they will lose the fresh factors after the first year. What has been your observation?
I think my answer can be very short. COVID-19. With the challenges posed by COVID-19 and the challenges on our various economies in all the countries, I can't see how CAM can become stale. There are always challenges. There are always, basically how the economies, how the businesses are being challenged. Even the question of going concern, right? With COVID-19, it is a continuous discussion for us at the audit committee, at the boards, in terms of how our businesses are coping with this. The issues may be different from year to year. The challenges may be different, but to me, CAM is very closely associated with businesses and how businesses are run. So as long as the businesses are there, I cannot see how CAM can be stale. There will always be fresh perspectives. There will always be fresh issues that are brought about. And what is important is it's not so much the issue per se. What is important is it is reflective of the way the governance and the business, is being run by the various organizations, and how can that be stale? Because you have to keep up with what is happening around you. You have to be conscious and manage it proactively. So I see this just evolving and becoming more and more of an issue for you to discuss. And I am all for not having too many camps. You don't want everything becoming a camp, okay? Because the word starts with key. So it really has to be only the key issues. I completely endorse the views by the previous speakers. It's not the number of issues you have there. It is really the key issues, and how you handle those key issues is reflective to me. And that's the important point. It is reflective how you actually run, manage, and for those charged with governance, how you exercise that responsibility over the companies. I think maybe I'll pause here and can come back in a little bit later. Thank you.
Sorry, Pak Endang, you're on mute again.
Yeah, Pak Endang.
Yeah, I will move to David. The first question is, it's been a few years since CAM has become effective in a few markets in our region and around the world. What is your assessment of CAM?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you in Jakarta, albeit I'm in Singapore. So as you say, it's been a few years since CAMS became effective. I'll comment on what we've experienced in Asia, and then I can maybe contrast that with what we've heard elsewhere around the world within Aberdeen Standard. I recall years ago when CAM was being introduced and we were discussing this, we were terrifically excited that as investors we would get even more insight into the way that audit was done, because as investors we'd grown used to a fairly general audit statement that the auditors had signed off on the reports, there was an unqualified opinion, and that was that. So we were terrifically excited that we would get more insight into some of these key audit matters. And I think when we looked at some of the early adopters, particularly from the UK, there was a sense that this may be a good launching point for dialogue with firms and to get us better insight. I think what we've seen in this region, and maybe I'm being unfair, but I would echo what Chinwe mentioned in his presentation. I think we've seen a growth in fairly generalized statements rather than tailored statements. So fairly generalized key audit matter comments around, we looked at revenue recognition, we looked at goodwill and so on and so forth, rather than tailored key audit matters where you get that greater expansion on the specific firm and the key issue for that specific firm. And I think the other thing that we've seen, or maybe we haven't seen, depending on which way you take my answer, is we've seen fairly generalized commentaries around how audit firms have dealt with these key audit matters. So if you look at the CAMs around a great number of annual reports, they actually follow almost identical structures. We looked at, we considered, we understood, we inquired, we were satisfied. Tends to be the structure of every single CAM that's looked at. Whereas I think what you want is, to echo Chunwi's comments, a bolder statement from the auditor around, we found the discount range to be at the lower end was his example. So I think that we would like the CAMs to be bolder. And I think the final part that I would like to see come out more is a little bit more of the reflection about change over time. So you may find a discount rate to be reasonable, but there's a spectrum of reasonable discount rates from X% to X%. I think as investors, we're interested in not just whether a discount rate to label this point is reasonable, but whether that's been changing over the last few years. So if you've seen changes in expected growth rates and changes in discount rates to perhaps help firms not impair goodwill, for example, then as investors, that's what we're looking at. So on the whole, we're very pleased that CAMs have come in. It's given a little bit more insight, but I think we'd like to see a little bit more tailoring of narrative. I think we'd like to see bolder commentary from auditors, and I think we'd like to see a little bit commentary around change over time. I think the biggest issue that we've not necessarily seen in Asia, but have seen in other markets, and that I'd like to see in this region, is using CAMs as a launching point for dialogue between firms and investors. So what we typically see in the UK, for example, is certainly around AGM season, boards and AC chairs going on a bit of a roadshow with large investors to say the AGM's coming up, I'm the chair of the AC, would you like to discuss any of the CAMs? Would you like to discuss the work of the audit committee, for example? That's become not an unusual dialogue with investors in the UK. We haven't necessarily seen that in Asia. So there are two parts to my answer, and forgive me, it's been a long answer. One is around the sort of structural content of the CAMs, and the other one is the way that those CAMs are used as a launching point for dialogue between corporates and investors.
Okay, so you think that the more transparent of the reporting entity, the less riskier of the investment, and also the lender. So the cost of capital of the reporting entity would be reduced, by the lower risk of the because of the transparency of the audit report. Thank you. And the other two, the second question is, even though CAM disclosure come from auditors as an enhanced auditor report, have you observed management using this opportunity to engage the investing community on the issue highlighted? So
to my earlier response, I think we have seen that in the UK, and I know from colleagues in the UK that this is not an unusual engagement to have around the AGM season. I think we haven't necessarily seen that in Asia. I think I echo a lot of what Chunwi said in his presentation around the content of CAMs. What surprised me was the percentage of investors who used CAMs quite regularly and discussed those with management. I was surprised that that percentage is so high based on the conversations I have with the buy side and the sell side in terms of who uses the CAMs. I don't think it's been a big part of conversation between management and investors, unless there's a specific issue that the auditors have flagged some or highlighted some kind of concern around. I don't think we've seen the same level of dialogue that we've potentially seen again in the UK.
Okay.
And can I come in very quickly on that?
Yes.
Oh, yes, please.
So thanks, David. And I agree with many of the observations by you and by Dr. Zaiton. I think just in terms of the usage of CAMs, I think the result was showing that investors were reading the new auditor's report before financial statements. And one of the, I guess, negative coming out from the conversation with especially the practitioners and ACs as well, is that they are not seeing a lot of investors actually standing up during AGM and say, this is what you have in CAM, let me have a further conversation around that. So that is actually quite low, and I think that's probably consistent with what you have observed. And I think probably it needs to come from two sides. From the investors' perspective, we are really hoping that investors can really take the opportunity and use this as a platform for conversation. From the company and from the auditor's perspective, we are asking them to be a little bit more proactive. And I think one of the suggestions that we've heard is that perhaps you should set aside a specific time slot during the AGM for the audit partner to present the CAMs so that it can trigger further reflection and conversation. So that was some of the recommendations that we heard. But I think I agree with you. We are not seeing a lot of engagement at this stage, but hopefully with both sides just coming up, we will be able to see a little bit more later on.
Yeah, so if I can respond very quickly, and so I agree with you, and I think it takes two hands to clap, and I think so investors reading it, I'm a little bit surprised that the percentage was so high, but that's good.
Oh, really?
I think the reservation I have, or hesitance I have about discussing at an AGM is I'm never sure you're going to get a free and open discussion with an audit partner at an AGM in front of 1,000 people or however many, particularly now with virtual AGMs, that you're going to have that full discussion that considers the nuances, because I think everyone is maybe a little bit more hesitant at the AGM. I think when this was being discussed, when it was introduced in Singapore, and we had a lot of discussions at the time, was whether rather than having company-specific dialogue at AGMs, which you may get boilerplate discussions in front of 1,000 people, there could be a role for the investor community and audit firms to have conversations around the kind of CAMs that we're seeing in the market and how they're changing over time. So we would sit down with senior audit folks at the Big Four, and the audit partner would be able to say, this is what we've seen coming up this year that we haven't seen last year, and these are some of the areas that we're seeing a broad spectrum of firms, maybe pushing the envelope a little bit. So you're not discussing specific firms, but you're discussing what they're seeing across the horizon. Again, not easy, but I think the challenge is having auditors discussing specific companies with investors in a way that goes above and beyond what they wrote down on paper. I think is gives me a pause for thought as to whether that will happen.
And I think that, sorry, Park, just one last thing. And I think that's a really interesting and good suggestion. But I think just back to the AGM conversation, I think it's really also for the investors to push for it as well. I think one of the things we've heard is that CAMS has been particularly helpful for retail investors, because big institutional investors, they get a lot of information anyway. So for the retail investors who are not privy to some of those conversations, probably AGM is one of the main platforms for them to get information. And if large institutional investors can lead those conversations, I think be helpful for the wider investing community as well.
Very fair point. Very fair point.
Okay. Before I move on, I will just comment that this is the third soft launching of our CAM in Indonesia. As we have already such webinar with you also, Junwi, for the first time, and then the second time when at the Expo, Financial Expo. Then this is the third time of our soft launching, even though we are still not doing the public hearing of the ISA 701, because we are preparing all of the standard revised for because of the 701, because 701 standard audit have impact to the others auditing standards. At least 16 standards should be changed or revised, including the audit report on series 700 and also on the uncertainty material about the going concern. So I will move to the ada panelis Bu Ningsi dan Pak Buji. Before open discussion to the audience, so ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have any question, please just put it in writing, or otherwise I will give you the microphone if the time is available. So first of all, I will ask Bu Ningsi. In Indonesia's context, do you foresee any specific opportunities and challenges in the implementation of CAMS? How can the Indonesian market tap on these opportunities and address the challenges? This question is for Bu Ningsi and Pak Budi. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Pak Hendang, for posing the questions to us as the practitioners. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Datuk Saiton and David Smith and Chun Wee, yeah, for sharing your insight. Your insights are very important, yeah, for all of us. And for me personally, yeah, I very excited, yeah, with the implementation of CAP. And one thing that I note, yeah, from I think Dr. David Smith, yeah, you mentioned that, oh, audit is done, yeah, audit is dying probably, and actually it's resonate with what I keep hearing, yeah, in the past and even until now, yeah, that there's a perception, yeah, in the market that audit is commodity products, commodity service. Honestly, I am as the practitioner, when I heard that, I emotionally quite sad. Yeah, because why? Because as the auditors, we know exactly what we did at the back. There are so many things, okay, that we have to do to complete the audit. The requirements are getting tougher and tougher, and then the regulations are more, the accounting standard, auditing standards. Actually, we spend thousands of hours, yeah, to complete an audit. Yeah, this is I say something maybe for the big client. Yeah, for the listed company, I'll just say that to backup. So with this, I have a hope now. Yeah, I have a hope that with the CAM, I'll see there are a lot of opportunity, yeah, for us as a profession to enhance, yeah, our profile, yeah, in which I hope that the markets will no longer say that our professions are simply a commodity service. Yeah. How can commodity service? Because for us to issue one audit report, we have to think about the judgment, we have to think about how we exercise professional judgment, professional skepticism, etc. So with that, yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunity, but I just want to give a few opportunities that I think is very important. First, for sure, with CAM, there will be opportunity for practitioners, for auditors to enhance the audit quality. Why? Because we will have an engaged communications with audit committee, and the audit committee will be able to give us some insights about the company, about the risk. Yeah, and from there, okay, we can actually focus, yeah, on the risk, and then we also enhance our ability to communicate, yeah, the value of audit. Yeah. So that's one of the things. Yeah, one is audit quality, the opportunity to enhance the audit quality. Secondly, this is I actually got it, yeah, from Chun Wee presentation, and I concur, yeah, with that. CAM will boost in audit confidence, yeah, and enhance the corporate disclosure. Yeah. So those are the two opportunities. There are other opportunities that actually I'm not going to mention one by one. Maybe my colleague will mention about it. But in overall, the opportunity will outweigh the challenge. Yeah, definitely there will be a challenge to implement CAM in Indonesia. First, the timing. Yeah. Secondly, this is a big shift, require a change mindset, and it will involve many parties and the skill set. Yeah, why I say the skill set, because this is require an enhanced skill set in analyzing, yeah, in determining which one is the most significant, and last but I think is important is actually in the way, yeah, we articulate the issue in writing and put it into the report that will be read by many parties. Yeah, so I think that's the big challenge. So how can Indonesia market tap on these opportunities and address the challenge? Yeah. And first, I think to tap on this opportunity, definitely proactiveness is very important. For me, as the practitioner, definitely we have to be more proactive to engage the discussions, yeah, with the audit committee and also with the management. And secondly, how to address the challenge. I think Chunwi already mentions, yeah, that this standard implementing camp will require everyone to play a very important role. So working together, yeah, and working together and then embracing. I think the most important thing is embracing, yeah, these change the mindsets are very important, yeah, to address the challenge. And also, in my view, the regulators will also need to play a very important role. I noted, yeah, I deal with many audit committees, yeah, and honestly, yeah, for audit committee Indonesia, it's quite varied. Yeah, some of them probably they have a very extensive knowledge, yeah, in accounting standard, and some of them probably are still still need to catch up. Yeah. So with that, I think regulator play a very important role to make sure, yeah, that the audit committee, yeah, should have a reasonable skill set, yeah, to conduct their role as the audit committee. So from me, and I think I'm going to pass to Budi, yeah, to give a more flavor.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Beningsi. Thank you, Bahinda.
Yeah.
So just on this one, I think Beningsi has covered almost everything in terms of investors, regulators, and the public. Just going to echo what Chunwei has mentioned as well. This one, and also what Ibu Ningsi has mentioned, this one involves coordinations and cooperations among stakeholders, not just the auditors, not just the managements. Everyone need to do their own part. Well, this is going to be, if we do this properly, and then we can use this the new auditing standards 701 as something as a tools where it creates opportunity to all of us, because this is going to be very good tools where it's going to be focusing stakeholders or the user of the financial statements to look at the companies in more proper way. In the past, like I mentioned in my presentations, because the way the auditor's report has been rendered, when the user of the financial statements looking at the financial statements, they will be unlikely to find out what they need to focus on the financial statements, about the risks, about the area that they need to focus on, and it may vary on a party to other parties. With these new camps, if we do this properly, avoid things, these tools becoming another policy in the futures, we'll be able to highlight and give more informative information to the user financial statements, including giving more transparency on the how the auditors has done the work and looking at the risk, the most significant risk area in the particular companies, so the investor can actually gain more benefit on this. So the challenges is more on I guess it's more like what Ibu Ning says mentions in how we can ensure that the cooperations and the coordinations is happening amongst us. And this in this regard, regulatories is always playing a significant roles and having supports to actually ensuring these things goes smoothly and everyone embraces it is very, very important.
Okay, Pak Budi. I have still one question for Chunwi, because you are also from the board of IAASB. It has been a few years since the standard has been effective at the international level. How does IAASB gauge the success of the standard? Is there any plan to modify the standard? Okay, Chunwi, please.
Thank you, Park and Dong. And I'll give a very quick response to that because work is ongoing. I'm part of the post-implementation group. So we have a working group that's really looking at how it's being implemented around the world. And we've just recently done a survey, and it was just closed 2 days ago. So I'm looking forward to looking at the results from the survey. And in the survey, we were actually targeting different groups to get views from the different perspectives. And we'll be looking very closely at those feedback and to see, whether there's indeed any change that is needed. Hopefully next year we can come back and I can give you a more comprehensive response to your question. But what we have heard so far is that it is principle-based and it is really up to each individual practice, firms, and different players within the financial reporting system, as you said earlier, to come together and make it work for them. So what I've heard so far is it's working fine, but as I said, maybe next year I can come back with a more comprehensive response to that. Park and Down.
Okay. I would like our panelists to now help us address the question that have come in from our audience. Is there any question from the audience? Oh. Okay, shall we select the relevant one? How can the profession enhance the value of the audit? I think that the first question is already explained quite straightforwardly by Bu Ningsi. And then I will move on to another question: whether key audit matters can find or reduce fraud. Since Bu Ningsi is an auditor, could you please respond to the question, Bu Ningsi?
Yeah, I unmute first. So where key audit matter can find or reduce fraud. Okay, maybe first of all, I would like to start with emphasizing, as the auditor, actually, our role is not to find or reduce fraud. Yeah, because the management is the one who responsible, to find and reduce fraud. However, as the auditor, we have the responsibility, to identify whether there are material misstatement in the financial statement that was caused by fraud or not. Yeah. So in this case, the auditor usually, during the risk assessment, they will identify whether there are risk of fraud. Yeah, based on the fact and circumstances, based on the condition. Usually, the auditor will perform like a triangle analysis to see the incentive, the pressure, and rationalization to identify the risk of fraud, and then perform the audit procedures to address those risks. Yeah, so that's the beginning. Yeah, so just want to clarify. So whether the key auditor can find or reduce the fraud, I don't think the key audit matter can find or reduce the fraud. But because the key audit matters are area which are the most significant matter identified by the auditors, so definitely yes. If the auditor identify there is a risk of fraud that may cause material misstatement in the financial statement, then those area can be kept. But the cap will not be able. It is not intended to find or to reduce fraud. So I think that's it. My questions. Hopefully it answer the question.
Okay, thanks, Bu Ningsi.
Park and Down, can I?
Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
Park, can I just maybe come in very, very quickly? I agree with everything that Bu Ningsi has said. And I think, again, you'll get sick of me saying this, but it's all players coming together. I think CAM play a role in enhancing the corporate governance, right? So this is about, the enhanced conversation at the boardroom with the AC, with the management, etc. And then, having investors really casting their eyes on these key areas. So as Bunishi and Pak Budi has mentioned, these are the areas where you get the key judgment. And by definition, key judgment means that there's a highest possibility of manipulation as well. So I guess just having all eyes on those areas will help to address a little bit of the fraud risk. But CAMS is ultimately a communication tool rather than a tool to prevent fraud. But everyone can come together and use this as a platform.
Okay, Mr. Chunwi. I will explore also, the rest of the question. Siapa? Asri, bisa di move lagi? Can you move? Okay. I choose the question as, please. How can the profession enhance the value of the audit? This is the professional role in promoting the value of the audit, especially for the key audit matters. Yeah. Would you please, Chunwi, your comment, please, for this?
Thanks, Park. I don't think I can do a better job than what Bunish has already said in terms of the whole environment that we're in now, the way audit is being viewed, right? And we truly feel that CAM has the opportunity for us to enhance the value, because it's not just one template of report that you see anymore. And one of the I guess part of the research that we did that I did not have the chance to show in my presentation was that we actually look at different firms, right? The CAMs that are issued by the different firms. And we found that, sometimes you get the sense that the largest firm are best in doing what they need to do. And it was quite interesting when we tried to give a score to the CAMs that are issued by the different firms. And we found in the Singapore's case, the largest 4 firms, they have results that were like somewhere in the middle. And it was the next tier, mid-tier firm that actually had a wide variety. So there were some that did really quite badly. It was very boilerplate, etc. But there were some that came in with very bold and really well-written CAMs. And again, I think we want to tell, I guess, the practitioners out there as well that this is actually an opportunity for you to show that you can do something that is of value and to sell your value to the ultimate buyer, who are the investors. So I'll just leave it at that. But I think Bunishi has addressed this particular question really well just now.
Okay.
Thank you, Park.
Yeah. The other question from the floor is that sometimes in certain circumstances, the auditors reissued the report or amend the report previously issued. What is the effect, if any, on the CAMs previously communicated in the auditor's report? Maybe Pak Budi could help us, Pak Budi or Ibu Ningsi, about the reissued of the previous audit report. How about the CAM? Is there any effect of the key audit matters about the reissuing of the audited report?
Okay, Pak Hendang, I think I'll try to answer this question first. Maybe Ibu Ningsi can also add later if there's something to be added. Well, first thing we need to know what is the reasons of the reissues of the financial of the auditor's report. If this is something to the error that they find on the things that we disclosed on the CAM, then definitely it will be impacted to the CAM that's been previously issued. Otherwise, basically, it depends on what are the nature of the reissuance. If this reissuance is something like for example in Indonesia, it's very common where the company, when they are doing corporate actions, the regulatory, in this case OJK, may require reissuance financial statements because of additional sum of disclosure that to be added in the financial statements. If that happens and it doesn't have any impacts to the CAM that's been reported before, then there will be no impact to impact to the camp that has been reported before as well.
Okay. And the other question that I see that it's quite good is that from audit committee, investors, and management perspective, what does it take to effectively and efficiently implement of CAM? Maybe Mr. Pak David, Mr. David or Datuk, could you please share your opinion on that?
I think it is a whole ecosystem we are looking at.
Yes.
It doesn't fall squarely on anyone's shoulders, but CAM actually is in the best interest of the company, and it is in the best interest of the investors as well, as basically an enhanced level of transparency. So it is in everyone's interest actually to make this work. We all have different roles to play. However, at the end of the day, it is a common objective, which is in the best interest of the company. And while we're at this, I'll stop here, but I would like to take up that question about the increase in audit fees, because it is a favorite subject of mine. So I will let David address this question, and then maybe if I could take that one part on the audit fees. I love that question every time it comes up.
Okay,
So I give my comments on both of those actually. And maybe I'll start with the audit fees first, because there's always a lot of discussion about increases in audit fees, and those discussions or the complaints about increases in audit fees rarely, if ever, come from investors. Investors almost never, in my experience, say that this company is paying too much in terms of its audit fee. It tends to be that the company is paying too little. So we're generally happy if companies are paying a decent amount for audit fee and getting a good service, and we're getting the assurance that we want. So to audit committees out there, don't think that we're going to punish you one way or the other for paying a little bit more for an audit fee. That's probably the least of our worries, I would say, in terms of our concerns. As to how this works, I can't say again, Datuk Zaitun, what you've said and what Chun Wee said about the ecosystem, about the multi-stakeholders. I can't say it in a new way. But if you think about the people that it needs to make it work, you look at the people who are involved in audit production, audit consumption, you have the audit firm, the audit committee, management and investors. For CAMS to work, you need generally all four of those stakeholders to be communicating properly. And CAMS is one start, albeit that's a written one-way communication. I think you need communication to be broader between those four, maybe more stakeholders, and to be deeper. So I mentioned earlier about the communication between investors and audit firms, and Chun Wee and I discussed various options there. I think that is a really important channel for dialogue that maybe moves away from company-specific discussions that you might also be having at an AGM. So I think it takes everyone to do it. Otherwise, you end up with these boilerplate disclosures within an annual report that no one's reading. And if no one reads it, then it ends up with no one putting much effort into it. And then you end up with boilerplate disclosures year on year. So it takes everyone to make it work, really.
Okay. As you know that,
but can I come back to the audit fees? I think this is something which I always say when I'm invited to speak to audit committee here in Kuala Lumpur. It is not the job of the audit committee to drive down the audit fees. Some audit committee actually think it's their job to reduce. It is not. Actually, the external auditors are the only people that can give you an independent assurance about what is going on in the company. So why would you want to squeeze the very people who are giving you this independent assurance? Yeah. I know Ibu Ningsih is going to love me for saying this, but it is true, right? Of course, the fee cannot be exorbitant. They will have to justify their fee. But if decent work is being done for that fee, and definitely with CAM, there's more work for them the auditors. In fact, there's now an additional standard where they actually have to do even further verification on the assumptions that management have adopted in arriving at the judgment on these issues. And I think it is really in your interest to have an external auditor who is being fairly remunerated. I'm not saying highly, I'm saying fairly remunerated, so that they can do a decent job. So that me as audit committee chair, I can sleep better at night because I have this independent assurance. I also want to comment a little bit about fraud. It is an overused word of ecosystem, but it is no one particular party responsibility to look out for fraud. All of us have to play our part. And I think enhanced communication between audit committees and auditors actually is not foolproof. It is not the only way, but it will certainly help in terms of looking at this. So you don't I'm a chair audit committee. I don't just talk to my audit partner during audit meetings. I can call him anytime. He can call me anytime. Whenever we have any concern, we share concerns. And I think that continuous dialogue and transparency and trust is very important. I will not say it's foolproof. Fraud will always happen. If it wants to happen, it will happen. But at least we have taken the necessary precautions and risk management. And I actually communicate very closely with my external auditor. And I think all of us need to do that. Key audit matters definitely cannot address fraud. However, if there is a serious deterioration in the control environment in the company, I'm sure it will reflect up in the key audit matter. So in that sense, it is. But there is no one answer to fraud. Much as all of us try to look for that one answer, there isn't. It's a lot of hard work and really enhanced communication, I think, and openness, transparency is the way to go. Yeah.
Okay, Jaiton, I think that CAM is the effort of the profession to mandatory the auditors to be more transparent in the audit process. But there is another effort from the reporting entity, such as extended external reporting, in order to be more communicated to the investing public. That's why we could provide our service by extended external reporting assurance, such as integrated reporting or sustainability reporting. I think that many assurance service that could be provided, not only for the key audit matters, because key audit matter is compulsory and it is reported in the independent auditors reports, not in the financial statement itself. So it will enhance the audit value for the investing public. So before we end this panel discussion, I would like to each panelist to give your final thought. Each of you is about 1 minute, please. Starting from Chunwi. Chunwi.
Thank you so much, Park. I think, I really enjoyed this conversation. There was so much fantastic points brought up by my fellow panelists, and I'm busy taking notes as well. I think ultimately, we say it so many times, ecosystem is about the mindset as well. So just don't take this as another new thing that's coming to me, another compliance. It's not a compliance. It is about how you can make use of this opportunity. And I hope that through all this presentation, we have convinced you that there is value to be had. And in order to maximize this value, we need to all work together. As an IAASB member, I'm really happy to hear many of the projects that we are undertaking being mentioned, including Pak Handang, you mentioned the external reporting. Fraud is one area that we're looking at right now. So I do also urge everyone to keep a watch of what IAASB is looking at. There are a lot of very important work that we are undertaking and which hopefully will help enhance the capital market around our region as well. So looking forward to having further conversation on that. Thank you, Park.
Okay, Bu Datuk Zaiton, please 1 minute for final thought.
It's on mute.
Still mute.
Unmute Datuk Zaiton.
Sorry. CAM is, to me, a platform for enhanced transparency and disclosure from all parties. It focuses the discussion on the important issues, and I think we should welcome it because it is very much aligned to enhance governance within our companies and within the capital market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pak David, Mr. David, please. Have you any final thought to be delivered?
Yes, I'm not sure I'll need a full minute because I would echo what everyone said. I think the CAMs are an important mechanism to improve and enhance confidence in financial reporting, which is the bedrock of capital markets. If you don't have confidence in financial reporting, then you don't have effective and transparent capital markets. And so CAMs are an opportunity for everyone to build and maybe restore a little bit of confidence in financial reporting and auditing. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to make this work, including the ecosystem and the many actors that we've discussed before.
I think Park Hendong has frozen.
Yeah, maybe we can continue with Ibu Ningsi, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Datuk Zaiton mentioned that CAM is a platform to enhance the transparency and disclosure, and I think it's also a platform to enhance the value of audit. Yeah. So I'm as a member of the Indonesian Auditing Standards Board. Yeah, which basically we are right now in the middle of completing the revised auditing standards. Yeah, and we actually working very hard to complete that. Okay. So I'm going to actually what in my thought, because CAM is going to provide a lot of benefits, maybe outweigh than the challenge and the efforts. Sooner or later we have to adopt CAM. I think there's no choice. So I'm just going to try my best, together with my colleague in the auditing, the Indonesian Auditing and Standard Boards 1, to really push this implementation of CAM, which initially we plan to be effective per January 2022, and it has not changed until now. But there are still a lot of works that we need to do. So I think we have to push it, to move it forward, to ensure and to embrace that this what we plan to be effective 13 months from now, it will become a reality. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pak Budi.
Thank you. So again, for the closing remark, I guess is CAM is something that is very exciting. I think, as Ningsi mentioned as well, as an auditors who are very excited in adopting and embracing this. I think the main things that we need to changes is always not comfortable, but this one is CAM is like what everyone has mentioned. This platform is a tools is actually going to enhance the communications and the government's communications between the auditors and the other stakeholders and the management as well. And we need to prepare for the dry run before it's actually going to be effectively implemented. I guess that's all for me.
Okay. This is all the end of the panel discussion. Before we leave, may I say sorry for any inconvenience or any matters that not comfortable to you. So I will hand over to Oki as the host, please.
Yes, thank you, Pak Hendang, Datuk Zaiton, David, Ibu Ningsih, Pak Budi, and Pak Chunwi for the thought-provoking exchange. I'm certain we'll be hearing more about CAMS, not only in Indonesia, but also in the ASEAN region. Actually, I'm hoping that we will be hearing more about CAMS in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is something that I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for, our final keyword for the day. So our final keyword for the day is report. So just to repeat that, the final keyword for the day is report. So please do not forget to combine the 3 keywords that we have shared throughout the webinar and complete the evaluation form to secure your e-certificate for this session. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, I certainly hope you find our sharing and discussion today informative and useful. I mean, as a regional body for the ASEAN accountancy profession, AFA will continue with our commitment to work with our member organizations in promoting adoption and implementation of high-quality international standards. Through facilitation of sharing and discussion such as today, we believe that the collective capacity of the profession can only be enhanced when we are working together, providing ASEAN accountants with access to the latest knowledge and development opportunities. Key audit matters, or CAMS, is an important topic that ASEAN stakeholders, the auditors, the preparers, practitioners, investors, policymakers, and of course the professional accountancy organizations need to continue to engage. We certainly are looking forward to doing this with our member organizations, partners, and stakeholders in the region. I would like to conclude our webinar by once again thanking our co-organizers, EAI, EAP, and ACCA for their excellent cooperation in organizing this webinar. Our moderator, Pak Hendang, and all the speakers for allowing their time to share with us their expertise, experience, and insight into this very important topic. With that, thank you for joining this webinar. I look forward to welcoming you to our next events. My name is Oki Pratama. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Yeah, everybody. Thanks for the audience. Totally possible.
Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, akuntan profesional unggul, Indonesia maju. Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, IAI, telah berkiprah mendukung pembangunan SDM dan transformasi ekonomi Indonesia.
Akuntan memiliki peran penting dalam pembangunan nasional yang berkesinambungan.
Profesi akuntan mendukung upaya peningkatan profesionalisme SDM Indonesia agar bisa optimal berkarya mendukung pembangunan ekonomi yang efisien dan transparan. Melalui Prakarsa 6.1 yang telah ditetapkan sebagai program umum Dewan Pengurus Nasional IAI periode 2018-2022, IAI siap berkarya mengawal perekonomian bangsa ini menuju Indonesia Emas 2045.
Saya sangat mendukung rencana IAI untuk mempercepat program sertifikasi agar para akuntan di negara kita memiliki kreativitas, inovasi, keterampilan, dan memiliki daya saing, dan sekali lagi dalam rangka mendukung pengembangan ekosistem kita yang lebih akuntabel, lebih efisien, goal-oriented, dan inovatif.
Tanggung jawab itu terwujud melalui Chartered Accountant Indonesia sebagai identitas akuntan profesional Indonesia dan telah mendapat pengakuan kualitas secara global. Prakarsa 6.1 berisi 6 langkah aksi dengan satu tujuan strategis untuk memperkuat peran IAI dalam meningkatkan kepercayaan masyarakat terhadap entitas bisnis dan publik dengan menyiapkan akuntan profesional berintegritas siap menghadapi masa depan. IAI melaksanakan tugas dan tanggung jawabnya menyusun standar akuntansi keuangan dan standar profesi, melaksanakan ujian sertifikasi, serta aktivitas keprofesian lain mengacu kepada International Federation of Accountants dan Chartered Accountant Worldwide. IAI for Society dijalankan untuk memberikan manfaat yang semakin besar bagi masyarakat, serta untuk mendekatkan profesi kepada publik. Founding Fathers IAI telah menetapkan 2 tujuan pendirian IAI. IAI dibangun untuk mempertinggi mutu pendidikan akuntan dan meningkatkan kualitas pekerjaan akuntan Indonesia. IAI menguasai perubahan, menyiapkan masa depan.
Gabung Brevet Pajak IAI, pilihan tepat untuk Anda. Pelatihan Brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi. Kenapa memilih IAI? Modul yang selalu update dan materi yang dilengkapi dengan pembahasan studi kasus komprehensif. Instruktur yang terjaga kompetensinya, berpengalaman, dan tentu saja profesional. Apa aja yang didapat kalau belajar pajak? Sudah pasti, kita jadi tahu seluk-beluk perhitungan pajak. Menjadi kuasa hukum perpajakan mewakili perusahaan, meningkatkan karir dan menunjang profesi. Kalau ingin menjadi konsultan pajak, belajar brevet pajak juga bisa sebagai langkah persiapan USKP. So, banyak kan manfaat belajar brevet pajak? Sebagai benefit tambahan, IAI melaksanakan program kuliah umum perpajakan dengan menghadirkan narasumber dari praktisi dan profesional di bidang perpajakan. IAI juga melaksanakan gathering alumni brevet untuk senantiasa mengupdate informasi perpajakan. Kalian juga tidak perlu bingung, karena IAI menyiapkan berbagai pilihan waktu belajar, jadi dapat disesuaikan dengan kebutuhan. Bagi teman-teman mahasiswa, IAI juga memberikan harga khusus mahasiswa aktif. Selama pandemi, IAI juga tetap hadir dalam pelatihan brevet pajak secara virtual dengan menggunakan platform Microsoft Teams. Hal ini juga memungkinkan untuk dapat diikuti oleh peserta dari seluruh Indonesia. Dan, untuk diketahui, pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI juga diperkuat dengan MOU antara IAI dan Direktorat Jenderal Pajak. IAI juga memiliki kompartemen akuntan perpajakan. Yang salah satu kegiatan rutinnya adalah menyelenggarakan regular tax discussion yang mengupas isu perpajakan terkini. IAI hadir di 6 knowledge center di Jabodetabek. IAI Knowledge Center Menteng, Moy, Serpong, Kedoya, Fatmawati, dan Sumarekon Bekasi. Selain itu, dengan standarisasi nasional, pelatihan brevet IAI juga hadir di beberapa IAI wilayah di Indonesia. Nah, jadi tunggu apa lagi? Ayo segera daftar pelatihan brevet pajak terapan IAI. Pelatihan brevet IAI, ahli pajak, bedah substansi, temukan solusi.